I never expected a random Tuesday afternoon call from my mother to completely upend my life. Her voice trembled as she spoke, something I hadn't heard since Dad's heart scare 3 years ago. "Eliza, you need to come home. Now." My name is Eliza, and I should have known better than to drop everything and rush to my parents' house. But there I was, 20 minutes later, standing in their driveway while my sister Vivian's soon-to-be ex-husband Derek loaded boxes into his SUV. "You're really doing this?" Vivian's voice carried across the lawn, that familiar sharp edge making my stomach twist. "You're abandoning your family?" Derek slammed the trunk shut. "Family? That's rich, Viv. When was the last time you actually acted like we were one?" I hung back by my car, caught between wanting to help and knowing I should stay out of it. Through the living room window, I could see my parents hovering anxiously. Mom wrung her hands while Dad paced, both probably expecting me to fix this somehow. They always did. "Aunt Eliza?" I turned to find my niece Chloe standing on the front porch, her eyes red and puffy. 16, she looked so much like Vivian at that age it hurt, same dark hair, same green eyes. Different spirit though, thank God. "Hey, sweetie," I said, opening my arms. She practically ran into them. "Did you know?" she whispered against my shoulder. "About Dad leaving?" "No, honey. I just found out." Vivian spotted us then, her mascara-streaked face hardening. "Oh, perfect. Course you'd show up now, Eliza." Always swooping in to play the hero. "Mom, stop," Chloe protested, but Vivian was already advancing across the lawn. "This is your fault, you know," she spat. Little Miss Perfect with her perfect life and perfect career. "You just had to outshine everyone, didn't you? Make the rest of us look bad?" Derek paused halfway into his car. "Jesus Christ, Viv. Your sister showing up to help isn't why I'm leaving, and you know it. Don't you dare defend her." I held Chloe tighter as she trembled against me. This wasn't about me, not really. Never was. But as I watched my sister's marriage implode on our parents' front lawn, I knew with crushing certainty that I'd just been dragged back into Vivian's orbit. And this time the fallout would be nuclear. Derek's car pulled away, leaving silence in its wake. That's when Mom finally emerged from the house, her voice wavering as she called out, "Eliza, darling, we need to talk about what you're going to do to fix this." That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone, Mom's words still echoing in my head. Fix this. Like I was somehow responsible for Vivian's marriage falling apart. My fiancé Nate brought me a glass of wine, his presence steady and reassuring. "You're thinking about the science fair, aren't you?" He knew me too well. The memory hit me like a punch to the gut, 14 years old, standing in front of my destroyed project the night before the competition. Months of work ruined, my carefully constructed solar system model shattered across the garage floor. "I worked so hard on that," I said, taking a long sip of wine. And when I told Mom and Dad that Vivian had knocked it over, they didn't believe me. They never believed me. My phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. "Can I come stay with you this weekend?" Mom's being impossible. Before I could respond, another message popped up, this one from Vivian. "Don't you dare enable her running away. She needs to be home with her family." You know what the worst part was? I turned to Nate. After the science fair, Vivian told everyone how gracious she'd been, helping me rebuild my project overnight. She got so much praise for being such a wonderful big sister. Meanwhile, I got a C because the rushed replacement looked like garbage. Nate sat beside me, his hand finding mine. "You don't have to keep playing this role, Eliza. The responsible one who fixes everything." My phone buzzed again. "Mom, this time. Chloe's asking to stay with you. Please say yes, Vivian needs space to process everything." "That's exactly what they want, though," I said, feeling the familiar weight settle on my shoulders. "They want me to be the backup mom, the mediator, the fixer, but the moment I actually stand up for myself, I'm the bad guy." Another text from Chloe made my heart sink. "Please, Aunt Eliza. I can't handle another night of Mom crying and throwing Dad's things around." You know what's really messed up? I set my wine down harder than intended. Vivian's the one who cheated. She's the one who drove Derek away. But somehow I'm still getting blamed for not doing enough to help her. Nate squeezed my hand. So, what are you going to do? I stared at my phone at the competing demands from my family. The old pattern would be to give in to try to keep everyone happy. But as I thought about my ruined science project, about years of similar incidents, something shifted inside me. I'm going to pick up Chloe, I said finally. But this time it's going to be on my terms. Chloe's weekend stay turned into a week, then 2. I didn't mind, my spare room was better than the war zone at home. But when I stopped by Vivian's house to pick up more of Chloe's clothes, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. The house was a mess, unopened mail scattered across the kitchen counter. As I gathered Chloe's things, a past due notice from the mortgage company caught my eye. Then another. And another. Beneath them, a letter from Derek's lawyer about missed alimony payments. What are you doing? I jumped. Vivian stood in the doorway, looking worse than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes, unwashed hair, wearing what looked like the same clothes from days ago. Just getting some things for Chloe, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Viv, these bills are none of your business. She snatched the papers from my hand. Did Mom and Dad send you to spy on me? No one sent me. I'm worried about Chloe? Vivian's laugh was bitter. My daughter? The one you're trying to steal just like you stole everything else. My phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. Did you find my chemistry notebook? I need it for tomorrow's test. I'm not stealing anyone, I said, reaching for the notebook I'd spotted on the coffee table. I'm just trying to help. Help? Vivian blocked my path. You want to help? Then give me the $20,000 Derek's demanding. Or better yet, convince our parents to stop making excuses and actually support their daughter for once. I stared at her. What are you talking about? They've always supported you. They're still supporting you. Right, because you're so perfect you can't even see it. She grabbed Chloe's notebook, flipping through it. Did you know they paid for your college but told me I had to take loans? That they bought your first car while I had to work 2 jobs for mine? That's not... I stopped. Was that true? I'd never thought about it. And now, Vivian continued, they're helping with your wedding while I'm about to lose my house. But sure, keep telling yourself you're just helping. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Vivian says you're harassing her. Why can't you just let her have some peace? I felt the familiar twist in my gut, the one that always came with their selective memory of events. But before I could respond, Vivian pulled something from Chloe's notebook, a college application form. What's this? Her voice went deadly quiet. She's applying to schools in California? Behind my back, the look in her eyes told me everything I needed to know about what would happen next. And suddenly I realized this wasn't just about Vivian anymore. This was about breaking a cycle that had been destroying our family for decades. I found my parents waiting on my doorstep the next morning. Mom clutched her designer handbag like a shield while Dad stood with his hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. We need to discuss Chloe's college applications, Mom said as I let them in. And your interference. Chloe was still asleep in the spare room. I kept my voice low. You mean helping her plan her future? Vivian called us in tears. Dad finally spoke. Said you've been poisoning Chloe against her, encouraging her to move across the country. The familiar defensiveness rose in my throat, but before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Derek. Heads up, Vivian's lawyer just contacted me. She's filing for full custody, using Chloe's stay with you as evidence of parental alienation. My hands started shaking. Did you know about this? Mom's expression said everything. Of course you did. I laughed, but it came out hollow. Let me guess, you're here to convince me to send Chloe home so Vivian won't look bad in court? We're here because we're worried about both our daughters, Mom said. Vivian's struggling and you're making it worse by. By what? Giving Chloe a safe place to stay? Helping her apply to colleges? I pulled up the photos I'd taken of Vivian's past due notices. Have you seen these? Do you even know what's really going on? Dad's face darkened. We know Vivian's having some financial difficulties. That's why we've decided to help her with the mortgage payments. The same mortgage payments you told her she had to handle on her own 3 months ago? Another text lit up my phone, Nate, reminding me about our wedding venue appointment that afternoon. The appointment my parents didn't even know about because they'd been so focused on Vivian. Eliza, Mom reached for my hand. We know you mean well, but... A door opened behind them. Chloe stood there in her pajamas, eyes wide. Is Mom really filing for custody? The silence was deafening. I'll handle this. Mom started toward Chloe, but I stepped between them. No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. I think you've both handled enough. I have a wedding appointment to get to, and Chloe has homework. We can discuss this later. Eliza. Later, I repeated, opening my front door. As they left, I caught Dad's whispered comment to Mom. I told you she'd be difficult about this. Just like when she refused to give Vivian her college fund. Wait, what college fund? The text from Vivian came while I was trying on my wedding dress. Chloe needs a dress for graduation. The one she wants is $2,000. I told her you'd buy it. I stared at my reflection in the boutique mirror, the ivory lace suddenly feeling too tight. Behind me, the seamstress paused her pinning. Everything okay, miss? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A photo this time, Chloe in a designer dress, looking uncomfortable as Vivian beamed beside her. She loves it. I'll send you the store details. I need a minute, I told the seamstress, carefully stepping down from the platform. In the dressing room, another message appeared. Unless you're too busy playing bride to help your only niece? My hand shook as I dialed Chloe's number. She answered in a whisper. I'm in the bathroom at the store. Mom's gone crazy. Did you ask for this dress? No. She dragged me here after school. Said you owed her because... Chloe's voice cracked. Because you stole her college fund. The mention of the mysterious college fund made my stomach clench. What are you talking about? She said Grandma and Grandpa set aside money for both of you, but you somehow got all of it. That's why she couldn't afford college. A pause. Is that true? Of course not. I had student loans just like... Eliza. Vivian's voice cut through the background. Chloe, who are you talking to? Call ended abruptly. Moments later, another text. The store closes in an hour. Don't disappoint her like you disappointed me. I sat there in my wedding dress, feeling the walls close in. This wasn't about a graduation dress. This was about something bigger, something that had been festering for years. My phone lit up again, Mom this time. Vivian says you're refusing to help with Chloe's graduation. After everything we've done for you. That's when something inside me snapped. I stepped out of the dressing room, still wearing my wedding gown. I need to leave, I told the startled seamstress. But first, I need you to take a photo of me in this dress. The full amount I paid for it too, if you don't mind. Of course, but... Trust me, I said, positioning myself in front of the mirror. My sister needs to see exactly what she's about to destroy. I sent the photo to Vivian with a message. You want to talk about money? Let's talk. I'm done playing your games. Her response was immediate. You really want to do this? Fine. But remember, you started it. No, I thought, finally understanding what I had to do. You started this years ago. I'm just finishing it. 3 days before my wedding, I walked into my apartment to find the garment bag missing from my closet. The empty hanger swayed gently, mocking me. I knew exactly where my wedding dress had gone before I even checked my phone. There it was, a photo from Mom. Chloe wearing my dress at what looked like a graduation dress fitting, Vivian beaming beside her. The caption read, "Doesn't she look beautiful? So generous of you to let her wear it." Let her wear it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I called Nate. "She took my wedding dress." "What?" "Who?" He stopped. "Vivian? She's having it altered for Chloe's graduation." The words felt surreal coming out of my mouth. My mother is acting like this was planned. Like I agreed to this. Another text came through, Vivian this time. "Chloe was so touched when Mom told her you wanted her to have your dress. Really brought us closer together. Funny how things work out." I drove to my parents' house in a daze, barely registering the traffic lights. Mom answered the door with that familiar look of disappointed concern. "I wondered when you'd show up," she said, stepping aside. "Really, Eliza, if you didn't want Chloe to wear the dress, you should have said something before the alterations started." The dress was laid out on their dining room table, its ivory lace now marked with pins and chalk lines. Vivian stood over it, scissors in hand. "We're taking it in at the waist," she said without looking up. "Chloe's slimmer than you." "This is my wedding dress." "Was your wedding dress?" Vivian finally met my eyes. "But you have a successful career, right? You can afford another one. Unless you'd rather disappoint your only niece." "Where is Chloe?" "At school." "Why?" "Because I want to hear from her that she actually wants this. That she knows what you're doing." Vivian's smile turned sharp. "What I'm doing? You mean like what you did with my college fund?" "There was no college fund." The words burst out of me. "I had loans just like girls." Dad appeared in the doorway, his face grave. "Eliza, your mother, and I think it's best if you leave. You're upsetting your sister, and after everything she's been through." I stared at them, my sister with her scissors, my parents with their selective memory, my wedding dress being carved up like so many other pieces of my life. "You know what?" My voice was surprisingly steady. "Keep the dress. Keep everything. But you should know Chloe's been accepted to Berkeley. Full scholarship." "She asked me not to tell you, Vivian, but I guess we're all done keeping secrets now." The scissors clattered to the table as I walked out, leaving my family and my ruined wedding dress behind. Chloe found me at the coffee shop where I'd been hiding since leaving my parents' house. Her eyes were red, hands clutching her phone with my text about Berkeley still displayed. "Mom's destroying your dress," she said, sliding into the booth. "She won't stop cutting it. She keeps saying it's what you wanted." I wrapped my hands around my cold coffee. "Did you know it was my wedding dress?" "No. God, no. She told me you bought it for my graduation. That it was a surprise." Chloe's voice cracked. "I would never have let her. I mean, your wedding is in 3 days. 2 days now." I checked my phone, 15 missed calls from Mom, a string of texts from Vivian about ungrateful sisters and stolen opportunities. They found out about Berkeley. I heard the screaming from outside. Chloe pulled something from her bag, a familiar piece of ivory lace, carefully folded. I grabbed this before Mom could destroy it completely. "It's from the train, I think." My throat tightened as I touched the fabric. "You know she's not really angry about the dress, right? Or Berkeley. This is about the college fund that doesn't exist?" I looked up sharply. "Dad told me," Chloe continued, "before he left, about how Grandma and Grandpa remortgaged their house to help Mom after her gambling debts. How they've been covering for her for years." Pieces clicked into place, the mounting bills, Derek's departure, the desperate grab for my dress. "She's losing everything," Chloe whispered. "The house, her marriage, and now me. But instead of dealing with it, she's trying to destroy your wedding. Like somehow that will fix things." My phone buzzed, Nate asking where I was. Sweet, steady Nate who deserved better than this chaos. "I have an idea," I said slowly, touching the saved piece of lace. "But I need your help." and it might make your mom even angrier. I'm listening. What if we? The coffee shop door chimed. Vivian stood there, mascara streaked down her face, clutching what remained of my wedding dress, now a tangle of cut fabric and loose threads. Is this what you wanted? She held up the ruined dress. To turn my own daughter against me? To destroy my family like I destroyed your precious dress? Other customers turned to stare. Chloe grabbed my hand under the table. No, I said, standing. This is what you wanted. To make me feel as lost as you do. But here's the thing, Viv, I'm not lost. And neither is Chloe. I pulled out the piece of saved lace. We can't fix the dress, but maybe we can make something new from what's left. Something for both of us. If you'll let us try. Vivian's hands trembled, the ruined dress slipping from her grasp. Why would you even want to? Because we're sisters, I said simply. And I'm tired of letting the past destroy our future. My wedding dress wasn't salvageable, but something better emerged from its ruins. Using the saved piece of lace, my designer friend created 2 matching shawls, one for my new wedding dress and one for Chloe's graduation gown. Sometimes broken things can become something beautiful if you're willing to see them differently. Vivian didn't attend the wedding. Neither did our parents. But as I walked down the aisle, I caught sight of Chloe in the front row, her eyes bright with tears. That piece of transformed lace draped across her shoulders. Nate waited for me at the altar, steady and sure, just like he'd been through everything. The morning of my wedding, I'd found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a check for $20,000 and a note in Vivian's handwriting. I'm starting therapy. And Gamblers Anonymous. The money is from selling Mom and Dad's lake house, my share of it anyway. You deserved better than a sister who tried to destroy your happiness because she couldn't face her own failures. I'm sorry. I tucked the note away without telling anyone. Some healing needs to happen quietly, away from the spotlight of family drama. After the ceremony, Chloe hugged me tight. Mom's really trying, she whispered. She helped me fill out my housing forms for Berkeley yesterday, without crying or anything. That's good, I said, straightening her shawl. Sometimes the hardest part is letting people change at their own pace. Will you come to my graduation next month? Wouldn't miss it. Later, during the reception, Derek pulled me aside. Vivian showed me the therapy receipts, he said. She's doing the work. Really doing it this time. Are you thinking about... No, he cut in gently. Some bridges stay burned, but maybe new ones can be built. As Nate and I drove away from our reception, my phone lit up with a text from Vivian. Chloe showed me pictures of the shawls. They're beautiful. Thank you for seeing something worth saving in what I tried to destroy. I showed the message to Nate. Think she means the dress or our relationship? Both, probably. He squeezed my hand. You okay? I thought about the ruined wedding dress, about years of manipulation and hurt, about the slow, careful work of rebuilding trust, about how sometimes the strongest bonds come from choosing to see people as they are, not as we wish they were. Yeah, I said, watching the sunset paint the sky in new colors. I think we all will be. My phone buzzed again, Mom this time, but I let it go to voicemail. Some boundaries need to stay firm even as others soften. That's the thing about family. Sometimes love means knowing when to hold on and when to let go.
The buzz of the city filled the air as the annual charity gala approached, an event every socialite marked on their calendar. It wasn't just a fundraiser, it was the place to be seen, the pinnacle of high society's social ladder. This year's theme was A Night Under the Stars, a grand affair hosted at a historic manor, its sprawling gardens adorned with shimmering fairy lights and an orchestra poised to play. Invitations were notoriously hard to come by, only the elite, the influential, and those with deep pockets received the coveted gilded envelope. As I stepped out of the black car and adjusted my emerald gown, the memories of the past came flooding back. This night wasn't just about philanthropy for me, it was personal. Just 2 years ago, I'd been sitting in a tiny apartment, My life in shambles after my ex-husband, Richard, had left me for a younger woman, Claire. Divorce had been swift, cruel, and humiliating. He'd taken our social circle, the house, and even our dog, leaving me with nothing but a hefty lawyer's bill and shattered confidence. Rebuilding my life had been a quiet, grueling process. While Richard and Claire flaunted their romance on social media and climbed higher in society, I kept my head down, investing every waking moment into something meaningful, starting a nonprofit for underprivileged women. What began as a small idea had blossomed into a movement. Tonight was the culmination of that effort, though few people knew the truth behind it. Inside the grand hall, the event was already in full swing. The wealthy mingled, sipping champagne and laughing under the golden chandeliers. My heart pounded as I made my way to the garden, where the night's program would begin. Most of the guests had no idea I was the person behind the event. I had purposefully kept my identity quiet, preferring the cause to shine, but there was one person I knew would notice me, Richard. Sure enough, as I reached the edge of the garden, I heard his unmistakable laugh. He was standing near the fountain, a glass of wine in hand, with Claire clinging to his arm. She was dressed to the nines, her sparkling gown a little too tight, her smile a little too practiced. I hesitated, my confidence wavering for a moment. Did I really want to face them tonight? What if they made a scene? The decision was made for me. Richard caught sight of me and froze mid-laugh. His expression quickly shifted from confusion to incredulity. Well, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. Didn't expect to see you here, Emily. Claire turned, her gaze sweeping over me like a scanner. She must be on staff, she said lightly, her words laced with venom. Are you serving tonight? A wave of humiliation surged through me, but I forced myself to keep my composure. Actually, I said with a small smile, I'm here as a guest, but it's nice to see you two again. Richard's smirk didn't waver. You always did love to dream big, he said, sipping his wine, but don't get your hopes up too much. This is a tough crowd, not everyone belongs here. His words stung, but I refused to let it show. I knew what they didn't, that I was the reason this gala existed. I'd spent months planning, coordinating, and securing funding. Everything about tonight was a reflection of my hard work, but now wasn't the time to reveal that. Let them enjoy their delusions for a little longer. As the evening progressed, I moved through the crowd, quietly observing. My nonprofit had attracted some high-profile donors, and the event was a resounding success. Yet, I couldn't shake the sting of Richard and Claire's words. Their presence felt like a dark cloud over an otherwise perfect night. Then came the announcement for the keynote speaker. My heart raced as the host took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's gala would not have been possible without the vision and dedication of one remarkable individual. Please join me in welcoming Emily Carter, founder of Empower Women Initiative. The crowd erupted into applause as I made my way to the stage, but it wasn't the applause I noticed, it was the stunned faces of Richard and Claire, their expressions frozen in shock as I walked past them. The applause rang in my ears as I stepped onto the stage, my heart pounding. Beneath the warm light of the chandeliers, the room seemed smaller now, more intimate, every pair of eyes fixed on me. I scanned the crowd briefly, locking onto Richard and Claire's dumbfounded expressions for the briefest second before shifting my gaze to the audience as a whole. Good evening, everyone, I began, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Thank you for joining us tonight for this important cause. Empower Women Initiative started as a simple dream, an idea that women, regardless of their circumstances, deserve opportunities to thrive. I continued, outlining the nonprofit's mission and the strides we had made in providing education, resources, and support for underprivileged women. With every word, I felt a sense of triumph. This moment was mine, built on resilience and hard work, but I couldn't ignore the glances and murmurs in the audience, particularly from Richard and Claire's table. Their earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by visible discomfort. After the speech, I descended the stage to a standing ovation. My colleagues and several guests approached me, offering congratulations and sharing their excitement for the cause. I was basking in the warmth of genuine support when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Emily, Richard said, his tone strained. I turned slowly to face him and Claire. Up close, their polished facade was beginning to crack. Richard's usual smirk was gone, replaced with a forced smile, while Claire clung to his arm, her knuckles white. That was unexpected, Richard said, trying to sound casual. I had no idea you were behind all of this. Really? I replied, feigning surprise. I thought you'd have heard. Empower Women Initiative has been making waves lately, but then again, I suppose we've been busy traveling in different circles. Claire stepped forward, her smile as sharp as a blade. It's quite the coincidence, isn't it? You showing up here, of all places, almost like you planned it. I raised an eyebrow. Planned it? Claire, I've been working on this event for months, but don't worry, it's open to everyone, even those who don't quite understand the cause. Her cheeks flushed, but before she could respond, Richard interjected. Come now, Emily, no need to be snide. This is a celebration, isn't it? Let's not bring old grudges into such a beautiful evening. The irony of his words made me laugh. You're right, Richard, no grudges here, just progress. The rest of the evening became a chess game of subtle jabs and veiled comments. At one point, I caught snippets of their conversation with another guest. Emily's little project seems to have gained traction, Claire said, her voice just loud enough for me to overhear. It's impressive, considering where she started, though I suppose even a broken clock is right twice a day. I clenched my fists, willing myself not to react. Confronting them now would only detract from the night's success. Instead, I focused on the connections I was making, engaging with donors and partners who believed in the initiative's mission. But the evening took a dramatic turn during the auction. Among the high-value items up for bid was a week-long retreat at an exclusive resort, a prize that had attracted fierce competition. To my surprise, Richard joined the bidding, his paddle raised confidently. Going once, going twice, $50,000, I said, raising my own paddle. The room fell silent. Richard turned, his face a mixture of shock and indignation. Emily, are you serious? Why wouldn't I be? I replied, my voice calm. It's for a good cause. After all, the auctioneer, sensing the tension, continued. 50,000, do I hear 55? Richard hesitated, his pride battling his wallet. Finally, he shook his head, and the auctioneer declared me the winner. The crowd applauded, but the look Richard shot me was anything but congratulatory. As I signed the paperwork, he approached me, his voice low and angry. What are you trying to prove? Prove? I said, meeting his gaze evenly. Nothing, Richard, I'm simply supporting the cause. Isn't that why we're here? Claire joined him, her eyes narrowed. You've changed, Emily. I smiled. Yes, I have, and judging by your reaction, I'd say it's for the better. By the end of the night, Richard and Claire were visibly flustered. I, on the other hand, felt invigorated, but as I left the gala, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Richard's ego wouldn't let him walk away quietly, and Claire's animosity was a storm waiting to brew. I knew I had won the evening, but the real battle was yet to come. The gala had marked a turning point, a public triumph that exposed cracks in Richard and Claire's carefully curated personas, but I knew better than to let my guard down. Their anger wasn't just bruised egos, it was a storm gathering strength, ready to strike when I least expected it. A week later, I was in my office, reviewing our latest outreach numbers. Empower Women initiative was thriving, donations from the gala had surpassed expectations, and new partnerships were blossoming. Yet, amidst the good news, there was a lingering unease. Emily, my assistant, Jenna, said as she entered the room, holding a newspaper. Have you seen this? I glanced at the headline, my stomach dropping. Philanthropist or opportunist? Allegations surface against Empower Women initiative founder. The article was filled with insinuations, questioning the organization's legitimacy and my personal intentions. Words like self-serving, mismanagement, and misleading donors leapt off the page. The accusations were baseless, but the damage was done. My reputation was now under scrutiny. Jenna's voice was tight with anger. This is ridiculous. Who would plant something like this? I didn't need to guess, Richard. Later that evening, I received a call from one of our biggest donors. Emily, I'm deeply concerned, Mrs. Whitaker said, her voice strained. I've been hearing troubling things about the initiative. Are these claims true? Mrs. Whitaker, I assure you, every dollar is accounted for, and our mission is as genuine as ever, I replied, keeping my voice calm despite the knot in my stomach. These rumors are unfounded, likely from someone with personal motives to harm my reputation. She hesitated. I want to believe you, but until this clears up, I'll have to put my support on hold. The call ended, leaving me reeling. Losing donors was exactly what Richard and Claire wanted. Determined to fight back, I began digging for evidence. With Jenna's help, I tracked the source of the article to a shady PR firm. A little more digging revealed their biggest client, a corporation where Richard held a significant stake. It's him, I said, slamming the folder on my desk. He's behind this smear campaign. What do we do? Jenna asked. We go public, I said firmly. but not until I have something bigger. If Richard wants a fight, I'll give him one. The next move came sooner than expected. Days later, Claire showed up unannounced at one of our community centers. She was dressed impeccably, her smile as fake as her apologies. "Emily," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "I thought I'd drop by to see the amazing work you're doing." I crossed my arms. "Why are you really here, Claire?" She feigned innocence. "I'm hurt. Can't a sister-in-law support your cause? We both know you don't care about this initiative. Say what you came to say." Her mask slipped for a moment, her eyes flashing with anger. "Fine. Richard warned you to stay in your lane, but you didn't listen. Now you're going to lose everything." I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "Tell Richard this, the more he tries to tear me down, the stronger I'll fight back. And when this is over, he won't just lose, he'll regret ever underestimating me." Claire's smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good luck, Emily, you'll need it." That evening, I decided to take a calculated risk. I reached out to an investigative journalist I trusted, sharing the evidence we had on the smear campaign and Richard's connection to it. "This is risky," Jenna said as I hung up the phone. "It's necessary," I replied. "Richard wants a war? Let's give him one." The journalist worked quickly, and within days, a new article hit the headlines. "Business tycoon's campaign to smear philanthropist exposed, the truth behind the scandal." The piece laid out Richard's ties to the PR firm, the baseless nature of the accusations, and his history of using underhanded tactics to crush perceived threats. It ended with a glowing endorsement of Empower Women initiative, reaffirming our integrity. The fallout was swift. Richard's company faced backlash, with clients and investors questioning his ethics. Claire, ever the opportunist, tried to distance herself, claiming ignorance of her husband's actions. But I wasn't done. A week later, I held a press conference, addressing the scandal head-on. I started Empower Women initiative to create change, to give women a chance to rise above their circumstances. I said, my voice unwavering, "We've faced challenges, but we've never strayed from our mission. To those who tried to silence us, let me be clear, you will not succeed." The room erupted in applause, and I felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about everyone who believed in our cause. As I left the podium, Jenna leaned in. "You did it, Emily, you turned the tables." "Not entirely," I said, a steely resolve in my voice. "Richard and Claire aren't finished yet, but neither am I." The pressure was mounting for Richard and Claire. Their attempts to tarnish my reputation had backfired spectacularly, but I knew better than to underestimate them. This wasn't over until I dismantled their power entirely. One evening, while reviewing our latest funding proposals, Jenna burst into my office, phone in hand. "You need to see this," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and disbelief. I took her phone and saw a video making rounds on social media. It was grainy, likely captured on a hidden camera, but the audio was crystal clear. "Emily doesn't deserve what she has," Richard's voice sneered. "She thinks she can humiliate me and get away with it? Let's ruin her for good. And if we have to burn her organization to the ground, so be it." Claire chimed in, laughing. "It's not like she has any real power, she's just playing dress up. By the time we're done, no one will even remember her name." I leaned back in my chair, letting the words sink in. This wasn't just an attack on me, it was a declaration of war. But whoever leaked this footage had given me a weapon I couldn't ignore. "Jenna," I said, my voice steady, "this changes everything." The video went viral overnight, igniting outrage from the public. Media outlets dissected every word, and social media erupted with hashtags like #StandWithEmily and #ExposeTheRichards. Richard and Claire scrambled to do damage control, issuing a half-hearted apology, but the public wasn't buying it. Their company's stock plummeted, and high-profile clients began severing ties. I watched the chaos unfold with a sense of grim satisfaction, but there was still one more move to make. A week later, Richard summoned me to a private meeting. It was a bold move, but I suspected desperation drove him. I agreed to meet him at a luxury hotel, knowing this was my chance to end things on my terms. The conference room was opulent, but the tension was palpable. Richard was already seated, his expression a mask of forced composure. Claire sat beside him, looking equally uneasy. "You've made quite a mess, Emily," Richard said, his voice laced with venom. "No, Richard," I replied, taking a seat across from him. "You did that all by yourself." He leaned forward, his tone sharp. "This can end right now. Drop the public spectacle, and we'll compensate you generously." I laughed, the sound cutting through the heavy silence. "You think this is about money? It's about accountability. You tried to destroy me, my work, and everything I've built. Did you really think I'd back down? Claire interjected, her voice shrill. You're making a mistake. You don't have the resources to take us on. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. This says otherwise. Richard opened it, his face darkening as he scanned the documents. They detailed years of shady dealings, tax evasion, fraudulent contracts, and other misdeeds that could ruin him both financially and legally. Where did you get this? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Let's just say I had help, I replied cryptically. You've made enough enemies over the years. It wasn't hard to find someone willing to share. Claire paled, realizing the gravity of the situation. What do you want? I leaned in, my voice cold. I want you to step down from your company, publicly admit to your actions and make amends, and stay out of my life, for good. Richard's jaw tightened, but he knew he had no choice. Fine, he spat. You win. The fallout was swift. Richard resigned, issuing a public apology that barely concealed his bitterness. Claire retreated from the spotlight, her social media accounts going silent. Their empire crumbled, leaving them powerless and humiliated. Meanwhile, Empower Women initiative flourished, donations poured in, and our impact grew beyond anything I could have imagined. The public rallied around us, inspired by our resilience in the face of adversity. Months later, I stood on the stage of our annual gala, looking out at a room filled with supporters. This year has been a journey, I began, my voice filled with emotion. We faced challenges that tested our strength, but we emerged stronger, more united. This isn't just my victory, it's ours. Together, we've shown that integrity and determination can overcome even the most powerful adversaries. The audience rose in applause, their energy electrifying. As I stepped off the stage, Jenna approached me, beaming. You did it, Emily. You didn't just survive, you thrived. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. This is only the beginning. There's so much more to do. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. My mischievous sister Mary eloped with her husband, Todd, and left her son, Matt, in my care. He was just 6 months old and diagnosed with a chronic condition that gave him little chance of survival. Since that day, I hadn't seen Mary or Todd. Now, after 15 years, they stood right in front of me, stirring up a storm of old emotions and unanswered questions. Todd burst into laughter at something Mary said, and I struggled to keep my composure. Mary spoke about Matt as though nothing had changed, and Todd joined in as if it was all some grand joke. Listening to them made my stomach churn. I wanted to end the conversation and walk away, but before I could, a familiar voice called out behind me. Mom, it's time to go. I turned to see Matt, sharp and confident in his suit, looking at me apologetically. When Mary and Todd recognized him, their smug expressions faltered. Let me introduce myself. My name is Gemma. I'm 40 years old and work in an office. My son Matt, though not biologically mine, is the kindest, most considerate young man I know. He's my nephew, Mary's son, and we've lived together for the past 15 years. Here's how it all began. 15 years ago, I was married to Todd. We had a promising future, even if we were often busy, with no living parents. We leaned on each other through life's challenges. Then, one day, I came home to a dark and empty house. It was unusual. As I cautiously turned on the light, I was startled to see little Matt standing there. Welcome home, Aunt Gemma, he said. Confused, I asked, Matt, why are you here? Where are Mary and Todd? Without a word, Matt handed me a note. My hands trembled as I read Mary's brief, shocking message. I want to be with Todd. On the living room table, I found divorce papers. Frantically, I tried calling Todd and Mary, but my calls went unanswered. When Todd finally responded, it was through a cold, mechanical message. Mary never replied. I was forced to face the harsh reality. Todd had left me for my own sister. Aunt Gemma, where did Mommy go? Matt's innocent question shattered me. How could Mary leave her child behind, especially knowing his condition? She had raised him alone after her divorce, doing her best in difficult circumstances, but now, she had chosen to abandon him. I hugged Matt, who looked utterly lost. His mother had entrusted me with his care, claiming she could no longer manage. At first, I thought it was temporary, a respite for Mary, who was exhausted by his diagnosis. Doctors had given Matt just 6 months to live. I wanted to help in any way I could. Don't worry, Mary, I assured her one evening. I'll take care of Matt so you can rest. Mary was relieved. Over time, Matt grew closer to me, and I cherished every moment we spent together. But Mary's visits became less frequent. Her excuses for coming late felt increasingly hollow. "Mary, where are you going all the time?" I asked one evening. "Relaxing, like you suggested," she replied evasively. "I trust you, but it's hard not to worry when you're gone so long." "Gemma, I have my own life to live," she snapped coldly. Her words cut deep, while I focused on Matt's needs. Mary seemed to drift further away, and then, one day, she disappeared entirely, leaving Matt and me to rebuild a life from the pieces she abandoned. I grew increasingly uneasy, but held my tongue, hoping to avoid making things worse. Over time, it became clear that Mary's behavior wasn't going to change. "Fine," I told her one evening, forcing calm into my voice, "but if anything happens, let me know." "Thank you, Gemma," she replied, though her detached attitude left me with a sense of foreboding. Eventually, I learned the truth. Mary had been dating various men while leaving Matt with me. She even started dropping him off at my doorstep without so much as a phone call. Her complete disregard for Matt's well-being felt like a betrayal, and her casual indifference left me speechless. "Matt, do you know where your mom goes?" I asked him gently one day. "No, Mom doesn't like to talk about it," he replied quietly. I couldn't believe it. She didn't even explain her absences to her own son. Then one day, without warning, Mary disappeared. She left Matt at my house and never returned. That was the last I saw of her, until today. Mary had abandoned her son, and Todd had gone with her, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I was overwhelmed with disbelief and anger, but when I looked down, Matt was staring up at me, his wide eyes filled with fear and confusion. Kneeling to meet his gaze, I made a decision. "Matt," I began gently, "your mom might not be coming back for a while." "Why not?" he asked, his voice trembling. I hesitated, unsure how to explain. Matt was still too young to understand everything, but I knew I couldn't shield him from the truth forever. "Your mom had to go far away," I said finally, keeping my voice steady. "But you have me. I'll be here with you, always, okay?" Matt's eyes glistened with worry, but he nodded and gave me a small, uncertain smile. From that day forward, it was just the two of us. Matt had always been frail, tiring quickly from even the lightest activities. Mary had claimed he was receiving treatment, but it was hard to believe. His health was clearly poor, and I began to wonder how much care he truly had. Wanting to understand his condition fully, I took him to the hospital for a thorough checkup. The truth was devastating. The doctors explained that Matt's diet had been severely lacking in nutrition. Reflecting on it, I realized Mary had only ever fed him things like jelly and bananas. When I once questioned whether that was enough, she'd shrugged and said, "It's all he eats, so don't give him anything else." From then on, I dedicated myself to ensuring Matt received the care he deserved. I started learning about proper nutrition and began preparing balanced meals. Every morning, I made a nourishing soup packed with vegetables to help him regain his strength. It wasn't easy at first. Matt struggled to eat much, but he gradually grew better at finishing his meals. "Good job, Matt. You're eating more than before," I praised him one day. "Thank you, I'm trying my best," he said with a proud smile. As his strength returned, so did his confidence. Little by little, his spirit began to shine again. I consulted with doctors and started taking him out for light exercise, hoping to give him a chance at a long, healthy life. Each night, I tucked him in and listened as he excitedly recounted his day. "Today, I played catch and threw the ball farther than before," he exclaimed one evening. "That's amazing, Matt. You're getting stronger every day," I replied with a grin. "It's all thanks to you, Aunt Gemma," he said earnestly. His gratitude filled my heart with warmth, though I never showed it. I often held back tears. Day by day, Matt grew healthier and stronger, and watching his progress became my greatest joy. I wanted to give Matt the best life possible, to keep him safe and happy for as long as I could. 15 years passed in what felt like a blink, though I'd aged. Living with Matt gave my life purpose. I never remarried after Todd left with Mary. My life had changed too drastically. Sometimes, I found myself wondering about them, curious about what kind of people they had become, but I didn't actually want to see them. That curiosity was unexpectedly satisfied a few days later. "Hey, are you Gemma?" I was out shopping when a voice called out. Turning, I saw a face I hadn't expected to see again, an older but unmistakable Mary. "Mary?" I asked, caught off guard. "It really is you," she exclaimed, her voice cheerful as if nothing had ever happened. "Gemma, long time no see." A chill ran down my spine as memories from 15 years ago came flooding back. Before I could respond, a man approached Mary. It was none other than Todd. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked. Then, spotting me, he added with a grin, "Wait, is that Gemma? Wow, Gemma, you've aged quite a bit, haven't you?" I clenched my jaw, barely containing my anger. The audacity of these two was astonishing. Matt and I had an unspoken agreement never to talk about them, but we both knew the scars they had left. Now here they were, smiling and acting as though everything was fine. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked sharply, my anger slipping through. Mary waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, Gemma, aren't you glad you got to spend time with Matt?" I stared at her, speechless. Her audacity was staggering. "Oh, don't be so mad," she continued with a smirk. "Let bygones be bygones." Todd laughed beside her, as though the whole thing was a joke. "And how's that brat of yours doing?" Mary asked with a casual cruelty that made my blood boil. "Don't talk about him that way," I snapped. "Matt's not some dying kid," Todd added, laughing again. I looked at them, wondering if they were even capable of humanity. "What, still single, Gemma?" Mary sneered. "Miss your chance, huh? Well, Todd and I are still madly in love." I refused to engage with their taunts. The more frustrated they tried to make me, the more I resolved not to give them the satisfaction. "Are you still bitter about being left?" Todd teased. "Not that you could ask for alimony or child support anyway." Despite their mocking, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction that I hadn't let them provoke me. I decided it was time to leave, but Todd's next words stopped me cold. "Well, Mary's kid might have been a failed experiment, but our daughter is perfectly healthy." That word, daughter, stung. I turned to them with a question. "How old is your daughter now?" "She just turned 14, Todd said proudly. "She's the cutest thing ever." Todd's joy contrasted with Mary's sudden tension. I sensed there was more to the story. "So, you got pregnant after you left?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Mary's face hardened. She had been gloating moments ago, but now she looked nervous. "Is she really Todd's child?" I pressed. Mary flinched, and Todd's smile faltered. "Of course, she is," he said quickly. "She was born a year after we started living together." I tilted my head, skeptical. "Well, that's questionable. Mary, you were meeting all kinds of people while leaving Matt with me, isn't that right?" Todd's eyes widened in shock. "What are you talking about?" The truth began to dawn on him. When Mary and Todd had left, I'd hired a detective out of desperation. I learned that Mary had been seeing other men on the side, even during the weekdays. Mary was out enjoying herself while I cared for Matt. I continued. "She spent weekdays with other men while you were working." Todd looked at Mary, his face pale. "Is that true?" he asked, his voice trembling. Mary stayed silent, looking at the floor. "You told me you were exhausted, working for Matt's sake," Todd said, his voice rising. Still, Mary said nothing. "Then why did you marry me?" Todd's voice cracked with hurt. "Was I just convenient?" Mary refused to meet his gaze, her silence betraying everything. For a moment, Todd looked utterly lost, his confidence and pride crumbling. I stood there watching, the satisfaction of the truth coming to light doing little to erase the years of pain they had caused. "Todd was the most financially stable out of all the men you dated, wasn't he?" Mary's eyes widened, and her voice rose in panic. "Stop it." Todd turned to her, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. "Is that true? Was I just your ATM?" Mary froze, her face flushed with embarrassment, unable to respond. I kept my tone calm but firm. "I have recordings, Mary, conversations with your so-called friends where you referred to Todd as your ATM." Her expression shifted from defiance to fear as the weight of her exposed secrets sank in. Todd's devastation was palpable. "So, our daughter might not even be mine?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No, that's ridiculous, she's yours," Mary exclaimed, grabbing his arm desperately. I shrugged, unfazed. "There's a simple way to find out, a DNA test." Mary's face turned ghostly pale, her confidence crumbling. "No, there's no need for that. She's Todd's daughter." I didn't care to argue further. I had come to stand up for Matt, not to debate Mary's lies. "Whatever you two decide to do is your business," I said coolly. "But remember this, I raised Matt with love and care, and that will never change." As I turned to leave, a familiar voice called out behind me. "Mom, are you ready to go?" I turned to see Matt standing a few steps away, dressed sharply in a suit, his confidence shining. "I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, Matt," I said warmly. "It's okay, let's go." Mary and Todd stared at Matt in shock, unable to recognize the strong, healthy young man before them. "Wait, is that Matt?" Mary's voice trembled as she pointed, her hand shaking. Yes, I said calmly, this is Matt. He's 20 now and thriving. Matt stepped forward, his tone firm yet composed. I remember everything, even though I was young. I know exactly who you are, my biological mother and her lover. Todd's face contorted in confusion. But, weren't you supposed to be really sick? Mary said you only had 6 months. I cut in, addressing Todd directly. There was no illness. That 6-month story? It was a lie Mary invented. When she left, I took Matt to the hospital. The doctors diagnosed him as malnourished, nothing more. He just needed proper food and care. Mary's face turned crimson as I continued, and for the record, Matt was never a picky eater. He eats well now, healthy, strong, and even played sports in high school. I'm studying to become a doctor, Matt added, his voice unwavering. I want to make sure no child ever has to go through what I did. Todd and Mary were speechless. Todd finally broke the silence, his voice full of regret. I had no idea. Matt, I'm so sorry. There's no need for apologies, Matt said curtly. Gemma raised me. She's my real mother. Mary tried to interject, her voice cracking. Matt, I regret everything. I'm so sorry for leaving you. Matt raised a hand to stop her. Don't. I remember the times you pushed me out of the house when strange men came over. I remember the day you abandoned me. I decided then I'd never forgive you. Mary's face crumpled as she realized there was no reconciliation to be had. You call her mom? Yes, Matt said without hesitation. Gemma is my real mother. Mary stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as Matt and I walked away. Later, I heard Todd went through with the DNA test and confirmed the daughter wasn't his. He sued Mary for damages, filed for divorce, and cut ties with her for good. Mary tried spreading rumors about him, but it only backfired, leaving her isolated and penniless. I eventually blocked Mary's desperate messages. Meanwhile, Matt continued to grow into a remarkable young man. He got engaged to a wonderful woman, and I couldn't have been prouder of him. On Matt's 20th birthday, we celebrated with a dinner at his favorite restaurant. As we clinked glasses, I looked at him, my heart full of pride and love. To adulthood, I said with a smile. Cheers, Matt replied. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. Every choice I'd made for Matt had been worth it, and seeing him thrive was all I had ever wanted. Life has always felt like a series of hard knocks, interrupted by a few moments of light. Losing my parents early was a blow I never quite recovered from, a sting that lingered no matter how much time passed. But then, luck came in the form of the Parkers, the elderly couple next door. They took me in without hesitation, treating me more like a granddaughter than a charity case. We didn't have much money, but we were rich in love, and back then, that was all that mattered. Just as I was starting to find my footing, turning 18 and thinking about college, the Parkers were killed in a car accident. In the blink of an eye, I was on my own again. They left me a little money for school and their cozy suburban house, filled with memories too painful to bear. I sold it and used the proceeds to buy a small apartment in the city, near the college where I'd enrolled to study financial management. Having a plan felt good, like I was finally moving forward. College was tough but rewarding, and I threw myself into understanding numbers, markets, and the mechanics of money. After graduation, I landed a decent job. Days were busy, but nights in the bustling city felt inexplicably lonely, like a void no amount of noise could fill. That's when I met Tom. It was at a friend's party. He was loud, funny, and unapologetically himself, his energy as infectious as his laugh. Our first interaction was pure chaos. He bumped into me, spilling my drink. Hey, watch it, I snapped, startled. My bad, let me make it up to you. What were you drinking? He asked with a grin that dared me not to smile. Just a beer, I said, trying to sound unimpressed. 2 beers, coming right up, he shouted over the music, heading to the makeshift bar. That was Tom, straightforward and endearingly clumsy. We talked all night about everything and nothing. By the end of the party, I wasn't ready to say goodbye. A year later, he proposed in the simplest, most Tom-like way possible, on the couch. While we were watching TV, he pulled a ring from his pocket, his hands shaking. "Marry me?" he asked, holding the ring so tightly I worried he might crush it. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so us. Yes, you big goof. Marriage didn't change much at first. We were the same, just legally bound, and it felt right. Life in my small city apartment became cozier with Tom by my side. For the first time in a long while, the evenings felt warm, not empty. Then came the curveballs. Tom's parents, the Dawsons, were wonderful people. They welcomed me with open arms, their warmth soothing the ache of my own losses. Weekends at their suburban home became a comforting ritual filled with barbecues and heartfelt conversations. But life has a way of shifting abruptly. Tom was called away for a year-long business trip, and shortly after he left, Mr. and Mrs. Dawson's health declined rapidly. Mrs. Dawson's worried voice broke through one day. "Grace, I hate to ask, but I really need your help." Without hesitation, I moved into their home, managing the cooking, cleaning, and anything else they needed. The apartment was rented out, and the income went straight to helping the Dawsons. The days were long, but family sticks together, that's what I told myself, even when the weight of responsibility grew overwhelming. Then Emily arrived. Mrs. Dawson's daughter from her first marriage swept into the house unannounced, bringing tension like a storm. Her presence was unsettling, her motives unclear. One evening, Mr. Dawson, frail and weak, called me to his bedside. "Grace," he rasped, "watch out for Emily, she's dangerous." His words sent a chill through me. I promised to be careful, though I didn't fully understand the warning. True to his concerns, Emily quickly began to assert herself, creating an atmosphere heavy with unease. One morning, as I prepared breakfast, she stood in the kitchen, her tone sharp and icy. "Just so we're clear," she began, a storm brewing behind her words, "I'm not here to play housemaid or chef for anyone," Emily declared sharply, sipping her coffee as she glared at me like I didn't belong in her mother's kitchen. Her words cut, but I kept my cool. "Okay, Emily, I've been managing things so far, and I can keep at it," I replied evenly, trying to maintain the fragile peace. "Good," she snapped, her eyes daring me to argue, "because I don't plan on lifting a finger. This is Mom's house, after all." From that day on, Emily's presence became an oppressive force. She ordered takeout for herself and her mother, leaving the empty boxes for me to clean up. Her disdain was blatant, but I swallowed the bitterness for the sake of Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, who needed calm amidst the chaos. "Grace, why don't you sit and eat with us tonight?" Mrs. Dawson asked one evening, her voice carrying a rare warmth. Before I could respond, Emily cut in, her tone dripping with false concern. "Mom, Grace has been busy all day, she probably prefers eating later." The message was clear, I wasn't welcome. As the days wore on, Emily's entitlement consumed the house. She whispered with her mother late at night, turning her against me with venomous words. Mrs. Dawson, once so kind and understanding, grew distant. Her gratitude faded, replaced by curt commands and cold stares. Then Mr. Dawson passed away. His funeral was a somber affair, with Harry flying in just in time to say goodbye. Having him by my side, even briefly, was a relief, but beneath the grief, I could feel the tension thickening at the Dawson home. "How's everything been while I've been gone?" Harry asked quietly during a moment alone. "Fine, everything's fine," I lied, forcing a smile. I didn't want to burden him. His grief was heavy enough. "You sure? You look worn out," he pressed, his concern evident. "It's just been busy, you know, helping out around here," I said, deflecting. It wasn't the time to unpack the storm brewing beneath the surface. As soon as Harry left, Emily dropped her act. The dutiful sister disappeared, replaced by the domineering presence I had grown accustomed to. Mrs. Dawson, perhaps consumed by her own grief, mirrored Emily's coldness. Conversations turned into commands, and I became an unwelcome guest in the home I had worked so hard to sustain. Emily's audacity knew no bounds. She barged into my room without knocking, rummaging through my belongings like a scavenger. One afternoon, while seeking solace in the garden, I stumbled upon a box hidden among the shrubs. Inside were my watches, jewelry, and even some underwear. Nearby, several of my dresses were draped carelessly over a bush. Anger surged through me as I gathered my things and stormed inside. Emily lounged in the living room, her smug expression daring me to confront her. "What the hell, Emily?" I demanded, my voice trembling with rage. "You can't just throw my stuff out." Emily laughed coldly. "Live here? Please, you're just a guest, and not a welcome one. You should be out in the garden or, better yet, on the street. You're nothing but a freeloading beggar anyway." Her words stung like a slap. Trembling, I turned to Mrs. Dawson, who had just entered the room. "Mrs. Dawson, please," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "Tell her she can't treat me like this. This is supposed to be my home too." But Mrs. Dawson's eyes were cold, her voice void of the warmth I once knew. "This is Emily's house now." "She's right, Grace. Maybe it's time you found somewhere else to live." Her words struck like a hammer. The family I had fought to protect, the home I had worked to keep afloat, was slipping away. Despite everything, I stayed, bound by a promise I'd made to Mr. Dawson on his deathbed to look after his wife and not let Emily overtake her. But day by day, Mrs. Dawson adopted Emily's cruelty. "You're just sitting on your hands here, aren't you?" Mrs. Dawson snapped one evening as I cleaned up after dinner. "I'm doing my best to keep things running smoothly," I replied, my voice steady despite the hurt. "Best? Could have fooled me. You're just freeloading," she scoffed, walking away. The irony stung. I had rented out my apartment and sent nearly all the income to Mrs. Dawson, while Emily lived off her mother's pension without lifting a finger. "What does my brother even see in you?" Emily taunted one night, her voice loud enough to pierce through the walls. I bit my tongue, swallowing my anger and frustration. But everything changed one evening when I came home early from work. I paused in the hallway, hearing Emily and Mrs. Dawson deep in conversation. "We need to get her to sell that apartment," Emily said, her tone greedy. "You know how much money we could use." "Yes, but how do we convince her?" "Grace isn't a fool," Mrs. Dawson replied, frustration lacing her words. "Leave it to me, Mom. I'll sweet-talk her. Once she signs it over, we can finally live the way we deserve," Emily said, her voice dripping with malice. The betrayal hit me like a cold splash of water. They were plotting to strip me of my only financial security. My hands trembled as I packed my essentials, my heart pounding. I couldn't stay another moment. Without a word or a goodbye, I slipped out the back door, leaving behind the house that had become a battlefield, and a family I no longer recognized. I ordered a taxi to the station, gripping my bag tightly as if it were the only anchor in the storm raging inside me. Sitting on the train, doubts swirled in my mind like restless winds. Would Harry understand? Would he believe me or take their side? The uncertainty was crushing, but the fear of staying was even worse. I stared out the window, watching the landscape blur into an abstract painting of green and gray, a mix of fear and resolve settling in my chest. When I arrived at Harry's place, his reaction was a blend of shock, relief, and unspoken concern. His eyes widened as he opened the door, taking in the sight of me, frazzled, drained, and clutching my bag like a lifeline. "Grace, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" he asked, stepping aside to let me in. I hesitated, the warmth and familiarity of his home tugging at my fragile composure. "No, Harry, everything's not okay, not at all," I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. He guided me to the couch, his expression etched with worry. "Talk to me, babe, what happened?" Taking a deep breath, I spilled everything, from Emily's return to the house's toxic atmosphere, the financial manipulations, and the final straw, their plot to take my apartment. I hadn't wanted to burden him while he was away working, but now it all came pouring out. Harry's face darkened with every word, his jaw tightening in anger. By the time I finished, his fists were clenched, and his pacing betrayed his fury. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" he asked, his voice a mix of frustration and concern. "I didn't want to cause more trouble. I thought I could handle it," I admitted, feeling foolish now. "Grace, you shouldn't have to handle anything like that alone," he said, his voice rising. "I can't believe my mom and Emily would treat you this way." He stopped and looked at me, his eyes intense. "I'm not letting anyone treat my wife like that. No way." Pulling out his phone, he dialed his mother. The phone barely rang twice before she answered, but I couldn't hear her words. Harry's stiff shoulders told me enough. "Mom, this has to stop. I know about everything, and I won't tolerate it. If Emily doesn't leave and you don't start treating Grace with respect, you can forget about us helping out anymore. No more money, no more anything," Harry said, his tone unyielding. There was a fiery exchange, but Harry's resolve didn't falter. Finally, he ended the call, turning to me, his expression softened. "Looks like it's just us now, babe, but that's all we need," he said, pulling me into his arms. I leaned into him, the safety of his embrace fortifying me. "Just us," I murmured, feeling the truth of his words. The next few days were a whirlwind of change. I arranged for remote work, and Harry helped me retrieve my belongings from storage. Together, we set up a modest home office in his living room corner. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it was peaceful. Then, one afternoon, a call shattered that peace. It was Mrs. Dawson, her voice dripped with desperation. "Grace, why haven't I received the money for this month? You know we depend on it," she demanded. I was stunned into silence for a moment, her audacity almost laughable. "After everything, you really expect me to keep supporting you?" I asked, incredulous. In the background, Emily's shrill voice echoed, laced with anger, "She's just ungrateful, make her send it." I took a deep breath to calm my rising anger. "Mrs. Dawson, Emily called me a ruthless beggar. I'm not sending money to people who treat me like trash. I'm done." There was a pause, and I could almost picture her stunned expression. "But we're family," she said, her tone a mix of anger and pleading. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. Goodbye, Mrs. Dawson." I hung up, my hands trembling. Harry was by my side instantly, his support unwavering. "You did the right thing, Grace. It's time they learned to stand on their own." Life moved forward. Not long after, I discovered I was pregnant. The news brought unexpected joy, filling our future with promise. We decided to sell my apartment and buy a small house in the suburbs, a place where our child could grow up. Just as we were settling into our new chapter, another call came. This time, Mrs. Dawson's voice was broken. "Grace, I made a mistake. Emily forced me to sell the house and took the money. She left me with nothing. Could I come live with you and Harry?" Her plea stirred pity, but the memory of her choices steeled my resolve. "Mrs. Dawson, I forgave you long ago, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You need to live with the consequences of your actions, just as I have." I ended the call and blocked her number, my heart heavy but resolute. Months later, as Harry and I marveled at our newborn daughter, Mia, the pain of the past began to fade. We built a life filled with love and laughter, each moment reinforcing that we had made the right choices. Against the world, together, we were stronger than ever. "I only married you because you're the boss's daughter," my husband Oliver said with a smirk as I lay sick in bed. His words stung, as did the sight of the scarves and gloves I had lovingly knitted for him, discarded like they were worthless. He seemed oblivious to the pain his disappointment caused me, but if he thought he held all the cards in our marriage, he was sorely mistaken. Just imagining the shock of his realization brought a small chuckle to my lips. "My name is Stacy Morgan, and I've been married to Oliver for 5 years. We don't have children, but until recently, I thought we were happy together. Oliver, a workaholic, often spends long hours away from home, leaving me lonely at times. Yet, he always made an effort to prioritize us on his days off, making those lonely hours bearable. We met through my father, who was once Oliver's boss. After we got married, Oliver suggested I become a stay-at-home wife. It made sense at the time. I had the freedom to explore my interests. While supporting Oliver, I bonded with neighbors, took up fitness, and eventually discovered a passion for sewing and knitting. Every winter, I made him scarves and gloves. Though my early attempts were amateurish, I improved over time. Oliver once told me my creations were as good as store-bought items, and his praise spurred me on. I even dreamed of a future where we might sew together with our child. When I shared this thought with him, he smiled and said, "Maybe I'll join in and learn when the time comes." That memory brought me so much joy. I devoted myself to supporting Oliver, managing our home, and cherishing the time we spent together. From the outside, my life might have seemed idyllic. I was grateful for his high salary and the stability it brought us. I thought this peaceful life would continue indefinitely, quietly, happily, with the prospect of a child someday. But 2 years ago, cracks began to form in that dream. One evening, while waiting for Oliver to come home, I suddenly felt dizzy and collapsed. Oliver rushed me to the hospital. When I woke up in a hospital bed, I overheard the doctor telling him my condition wasn't mild. It was something I'd have to manage for the rest of my life. Though it wasn't immediately life-threatening, the prospect of future episodes was daunting. Oliver reassured me, holding my hand tightly. "You'll be in the hospital for a while, but don't worry, I'll visit whenever I can. We'll get through this together." His words eased my fears, and I clung to the hope that his support would see me through. True to his promise, Oliver visited almost every day during that first year. He held my hand, asked about my day, and even brought my sewing tools to keep me entertained. We spent hours chatting and laughing as I taught him to sew. Those moments were a bright spot in an otherwise grim time, and they made me believe that everything would eventually be okay. But after a year, things changed. I handed Oliver the latest scarf I had knitted, a continuation of our yearly tradition. Shortly after, his visits became less frequent. Weeks passed between his appearances. My once supportive husband now felt like a stranger. And here we were, with him finally revealing the truth. I was nothing more than a stepping stone in his ambitions. The thought made my blood boil. but also filled me with determination. If Oliver believed he could walk over me without consequences, he was in for a rude awakening. At first, I thought my husband must be swamped with work, so I kept myself occupied with sewing, planning to give him my finished project the next time he visited. The doctor had mentioned I might be discharged by the end of the year, so I decided to make him a pair of gloves to mark the occasion. I poured all my feelings into crafting those gloves, hoping they would bridge the growing distance between us. When Oliver finally visited after weeks of silence, I eagerly handed him the gloves, but his reaction was chilling. He looked at them with disdain and said, "Are you still making these?" "Honestly, it's just a nuisance now." Before I could process his words, he handed me something, a pristine scarf I had knitted for him last year, and a set of divorce papers. The scarf, untouched and unworn, looked exactly as it had the day I gave it to him. "Has it been 2 years since you were hospitalized?" he said, his tone indifferent. "I heard you'll be discharged soon, but I can't keep taking care of you. We should get a divorce." His words were like a slap, but my gaze dropped to the divorce papers he had already signed. A strange calm washed over me. I had suspected this moment might come, especially after he stopped visiting without explanation. I had tried to dismiss my suspicions, convincing myself that he was just busy with work, but deep down, I knew better. The Oliver I knew, the man who had once promised we'd face everything together, would never have neglected me like this. Still, I managed to ask, "Why?" My voice was steady, more curious than distraught. I wasn't trying to cling to him, I simply wanted to understand. Oliver sighed, as if my question was an inconvenience. "Isn't it obvious? Ever since I married you, it's been one problem after another. I'm sick of those scarves and gloves you keep making me. They're embarrassing. Who even wears handmade things these days? I only married you because you were the boss's daughter, and now, with you getting sick, it's just too much." He laughed, a sharp, mocking sound, as if ridiculing the very life I had cherished. I glanced at his neck and saw a high-end scarf wrapped around it, one I didn't recognize. Its quality was far superior to anything I could make, and it didn't take much to realize he had never used any of my gifts. "I suppose you never wore anything I made for you," I said quietly. The thought stung, but the truth was undeniable. Oliver shrugged. "They were always a bother. I kept them because it seemed polite, but honestly, they just annoyed me." He went on, explaining everything with unsettling candor. "After my father retired and was no longer at the company, Oliver no longer felt any need to keep up appearances with me. My illness, it seemed, had been more useful to him than I ever realized. For the first year, visiting you worked in my favor," he admitted. "Your father used to talk about it at the office, and people thought I was some kind of saint, balancing work while taking care of my sick wife. It made me look good. If I worked overtime, I was praised for being responsible. If I needed a break, all I had to do was mention your condition, and everyone was sympathetic." I stared at him, my heart growing heavier with each word. "My name's even up for the next promotion," he added, smirking. "They're all idiots, but I have to thank your illness for that." When he finally finished, I looked up, meeting his gaze. My heart no longer felt broken, it felt resolute. What I saw was an ugly grin on his face. The man I once loved was completely gone. This was his true nature, plain as day. "Well, if I was of any use to you, I guess that's something," I said calmly, handing back the divorce papers. "Take care." He accepted the papers without a second thought, turned on his heel, and left. Just like that, our marriage ended. I sat in silence for a long while, and then, unable to hold it in, I wept quietly. After my discharge from the hospital, I moved back in with my parents. When my father heard about what Oliver had done, he was livid. "I can't believe he turned out to be such a scumbag," he shouted. But to me, it didn't matter anymore. I reassured him, telling him I wanted to return to my childhood home after wrapping up loose ends at the house Oliver and I had shared. My parents were understanding, urging me to take things at my own pace. Before settling at my parents' home, I decided to visit the house I once called my own. However, when I arrived, I was met with an unexpected problem. The front door lock wouldn't open. Confused, I glanced at my parents, and we decided to ring the doorbell. A stranger answered. Bewildered, I asked about the situation, and the man explained that he had purchased the house several months ago. He now lived there happily with his wife and child. My parents were furious, but I didn't want to disrupt the new family. Bowing my head, I quietly left. Still, I couldn't leave things unresolved. I immediately contacted Oliver. When he answered the phone, his tone was casual, even flippant. "Oh, yeah. I sold the house while you were in the hospital. The sale money? Consider it compensation. It was my house, after all, so you have no right to complain." His words were a punch to the gut, but I exhaled slowly, refusing to let him get under my skin. "You could have at least told me," I said evenly. From what I gathered from the new homeowner, the house had been sold over a year ago, likely around the time Oliver stopped visiting me. Even if he had been planning a divorce back then, selling the house without discussing it with me was outrageous. Our divorce had been finalized when we signed the papers, but we'd agreed to discuss asset division after my discharge. We had even scheduled a meeting for next week. Yet, Oliver had taken matters into his own hands, completely disregarding any prior agreements. What angered me most was his utter lack of remorse. "You really don't understand anything, do you?" I said calmly. "What do you mean?" he replied, sounding genuinely puzzled. "I'll explain everything next week," I said, then hung up. Turning to my worried parents, I told my father, "I need your help with something." I shared my thoughts, and he nodded, his anger fueling his resolve. "I'll prepare everything you need," he said with a determined smile. "There's not much time, but we'll manage." I thanked him, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. As I imagined Oliver's reaction at our upcoming meeting, I couldn't help but smile. The day of the meeting arrived, and we convened at my parents' home. My parents and I sat together, facing Oliver, who sat alone. Despite knowing my parents were hurt by the divorce, he showed no sign of regret. In fact, he appeared smug, even allowing a faint smile to play on his lips. "I'm the victim here," he said arrogantly. "But I don't intend to demand too much. The proceeds from the sale of the house will suffice." His tone was magnanimous, as though he were doing us a favor. My father's face turned crimson with anger, but I gently placed a hand on his arm, signaling him to remain calm. There was no need for us to lose our composure. "There's something important we need to discuss first," I said. My father presented a document and laid it on the table. "This," I explained, "is proof that the land on which the house stood is owned by my father." Oliver's smile faltered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "So what? The house was in my name." "That's all that matters," he said dismissively. "True," I conceded, "the house was yours. But the land was not." Oliver chuckled, his laugh dripping with condescension. "You think you can trip me up with that?" Pathetic. But this time, his confidence would be his downfall. I continued, "Legally, my husband may have been within his rights when he sold the house. But legalities aside, his actions have created a significant issue for the family who purchased it. Since my father owns the land beneath the house, he could demand rent from them. Don't you think that would be a problem for them?" I asked, letting the weight of my words settle. The family was misled, they weren't told the full story. Neither my father nor I intend to take such a drastic step as charging rent or forcing them to leave. However, we're not willing to give up our land rights for free either. The logical solution would be to sell the land to the family so they can consolidate their ownership. I paused before continuing. Of course, the family is now burdened with an unexpected expense they weren't informed about. If they have to pay for the land, they'll likely demand reimbursement from you, Oliver. If you can't resolve this amicably, they may sue you for failing to disclose the land ownership during the sale. Imagine their frustration, finally buying their dream home, only to learn they're responsible for additional costs. After obtaining proof of my father's ownership of the land, we visited the new homeowners. Thankfully, they were understanding when we explained the situation. They agreed that if a lawsuit were necessary, it would be against the seller, my husband. When I described this scenario, I watched Oliver's face grow pale. The realization hit him, and in a trembling voice, he asked, "What should I do?" Smiling, I replied, "The simplest solution is for the family to purchase the land from us. You'll need to compensate them for that cost to avoid further conflict. This way, the family can fully own both the house and the land, and the matter will be resolved smoothly." I leaned forward. "However, you should know that the land is in a prime location. Its value may exceed what you earned from selling the house. Even if you liquidate all your assets, it might not cover the cost." Alternatively, you could repurchase the house and land, but you'd also need to pay the family a relocation fee. Either way, you're going to lose money. His shoulders slumped as he realized the truth. I continued, also, I plan to claim compensation for emotional distress. Your actions caused me immense suffering, and while the evidence is limited, pursuing this matter will highlight your treatment of me. That alone could be significant. Given your current predicament. Oliver's eyes widened as my father spoke next. Even though I'm retired, I still have connections at the company. I've heard plenty about how you used my daughter to climb the corporate ladder. Your colleagues are beginning to see your true colors, and your reputation is crumbling. That promotion you were aiming for? It's already out of reach. Oliver's confidence shattered. The money he gained from selling the house, the respect he once commanded at work, everything was slipping through his fingers. Now, I said, my tone calm but firm, let's discuss what happens next. We'll decide how to handle the division of property, the compensation, and the matter of the land. For the first time since our separation, I smiled, truly smiled. I was no longer the person Oliver had exploited. As I spoke, Oliver could only force a hollow laugh, tears glistening in his eyes. The subsequent negotiations heavily favored me. Oliver agreed to pay alimony and reimburse the family for the land. We later explained this resolution to the new homeowners, ensuring their peace of mind. In the end, everyone benefited, except Oliver. Rumors, fueled by my father's network, began circulating at Oliver's workplace. His standing within the company crumbled, and his promotion was officially revoked. Within weeks, he resigned, unable to face the damage to his reputation. It felt like karma had caught up to him. What he had gained through manipulation and deceit vanished as easily as it had come. As for me, I found peace living with my parents. I now run a small sewing class, sharing my passion with local women and children. Though I never had the chance to start a family of my own, teaching others has brought me unexpected joy. In giving others the happiness I once sought, I've finally found it for myself. How could you forget something so basic? Beatrice's sharp tone cut through the gentle hum of the kitchen fan, her words coiling around me like a noose. I froze mid-stir, gripping the wooden spoon as a tightness gripped my chest. The soup simmered on the stove, its aroma filling the air, but all I could taste was the bitterness in her words. My name is Clara Mason, I'm 32, a nurse, and for the past 3 weeks, I've been the caregiver to my recovering mother-in-law. When Beatrice had surgery last month, I moved into her home, juggling hospital shifts with sleepless nights by her side. I wasn't here out of obligation, I wanted to help. I thought it might bridge the years of cold distance between us. But no matter what I did, my efforts seemed invisible, eclipsed by Emily, her perfect daughter. Emily, who breezed in once a week with a dazzling smile, stayed long enough to snap a photo, and left just as quickly. I swallowed hard. The words I wanted to say lodged like thorns in my throat. Beatrice turned back to the table, muttering under her breath. Her disapproval settled over the room like a heavy fog. Emily, of course, was nowhere to be found. She was already late for her weekly appearance, yet Beatrice spoke of her as if she were the one here, ladle in hand, tending to her every need. Careless, the word cut deep, twisting in my stomach. I had sacrificed so much, missed shifts, cancelled plans, even my anniversary dinner with Ben, all to be here, and now I was being criticized for forgetting a pinch of salt in the soup. Meanwhile, Emily could waltz in, take a selfie, and somehow walk away with all the credit. I stared into the pot, my hand trembling as I stirred. Anger simmered within me, bubbling just beneath the surface. It wasn't just Beatrice's words, it was Emily's calculated charm, the way she always framed herself as the devoted daughter, and I was the silent workhorse, too tired to defend myself. The front door creaked open, and Emily's heels clicked against the hardwood floor. She strolled in with a bouquet of flowers in one hand and her phone in the other, radiating effortless charm. "Smells amazing in here," she chirped, her smile lingering on me just a fraction too long before she turned to Beatrice. "How's my favorite patient today?" Beatrice's face lit up as if the sun had just entered the room. Her earlier frustration with me dissolved in an instant. "Emily, sweetheart, you're just in time. I was telling Clara how important it is to pay attention to the little things." Not that she'd understand. I clenched my jaw, my lips pressed into a thin line. Emily placed the flowers on the counter, laughing lightly. "Oh, Mom, I'm sure Clara's doing her best," she said, her voice dripping with syrupy sweetness. Then she turned to me, her smile razor-sharp. "Don't worry, Clara, taking care of Mom isn't easy. I've been learning that myself." The words burned, But Emily was already in motion, pulling out her phone. I knew what was coming next. She posed beside Beatrice, leaning in with a radiant grin as her camera clicked. "Just capturing these precious moments," she said breezily, scrolling through her phone to pick the perfect filter for her devoted daughter act. Beatrice sighed contentedly. "It's so nice having both my girls here," she said, her gaze lingering on Emily, though I'll admit, Emily always knows just how to make me feel special. The weight of those words pressed down on me like a boulder. Both her girls? Special? I thought of the sleepless nights, the endless medications, the careful shifts to ease Beatrice's pain. Meanwhile, Emily's contributions were nothing more than curated snapshots and empty reassurances. The ladle in my hand felt heavier. I could feel the words I had held back for weeks clawing at my throat. Desperate to escape, Emily glanced at me, her phone still in hand, and I wondered if she could see the storm brewing behind my eyes. "Mom," Emily began, her voice as casual and breezy as ever. But this time, I wasn't sure I could keep my silence. "I was actually thinking of bringing you that herbal tea you love next week," Emily said, her tone bright and effortless. "You know, the one from that little shop downtown? It's just been so busy at work, but I'll make time." "Oh, Emily, that sounds wonderful," Beatrice exclaimed, her eyes practically glowing with pride. "You're always so thoughtful." Something in me snapped. Thoughtful? The word came out sharper than I intended, slicing through the room like a blade. Beatrice's brows furrowed in confusion as she and Emily turned to look at me. "She drops by once a week to take a few photos and then disappears," I said, my voice trembling. "I've been here every single day, doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable." Emily's smile didn't falter. If anything, it widened, though her eyes glinted with something colder. "Clara," she said, her voice calm and measured, "I didn't realize this was a competition. We're all doing our part in our own way, some more than others," I muttered under my breath, turning back to the stove. The tension in the room thickened, pressing down on all of us. I didn't look up, but I could feel their eyes on me. The moment the words left my mouth, regret began to creep in. Even though I knew I was right, I hated that I'd let my frustration spill over. I didn't want to be the person who kept score, no matter how unfair things felt. Later that evening, I slipped into the guest room and closed the door softly behind me. I sank onto the edge of the bed, pulling my phone from my pocket. Ben answered on the second ring, his voice warm but distracted. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I admitted, the word tumbling out before I could stop it. "I'm exhausted, Ben. I've been doing everything for your mom, everything, and she doesn't even notice." Emily waltzes in for 10 minutes with flowers and a fake smile, and suddenly, she's the perfect daughter. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line, static crackling softly through the speaker. "Clara," Ben said, his tone patient but firm, "you know how my mom is. She's always been like this. You can't take it personally." "I know she's like this," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended, "but that doesn't make it easier. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be here, day in and day out, and still feel invisible?" I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I just needed you to understand." Ben's voice softened, a hint of concern breaking through his usual practicality. "Clara, maybe it's time to take a break. You've done more than enough, everything. Really, why don't you come home for a week? Let Emily step up for once. I miss you, and you need to take care of yourself too." His words caught me off guard, loosening the knot in my chest just a little. The thought of going home, of sleeping in my own bed, of being with Ben, was so tempting it hurt. But then I thought of Beatrice, her frailty, her stubbornness, and guilt crept in. "I don't know," I said quietly. "What if she needs me?" "She'll manage," Ben said firmly. "You've been more than generous, Clara. It's okay to step back. You're not a bad person for putting yourself first once in a while." Ben and I lived 2 hours away in a small apartment we'd made our home over the last 5 years. When Beatrice's surgery was scheduled, I'd offered to move in temporarily to help with her recovery. Ben had wanted to be there too. He adored his mom, despite her quirks, but his job was at a critical point, and he couldn't take the time away. He called every day to check in, always asking how I was holding up, but I knew it weighed on him that he couldn't share the burden. I sighed, gripping the phone tighter. "I don't know, Ben. It's not that I don't want to come home, I do. I miss you, and I'm exhausted, but I can't just leave her like this. She still needs someone here." There was a brief pause before Ben spoke again, his voice steady but gentle. "I get it, Clara. You care about her, even if she doesn't always show it. Just think about it, okay? You've done so much already. It's not selfish to take care of yourself too." "I'll think about it," I said quietly, my throat tightening. I promise. The words felt right even though I wasn't sure I could let myself walk away. The next morning, I found Beatrice in the living room, sitting upright in her chair with the television on low. She didn't look up as I entered, her attention fixed on a weather report. I hesitated in the doorway, debating whether to start with a simple, good morning. Before I could decide, Beatrice turned to me, her gaze sharp and pointed. Clara, she began, her tone already laced with irritation. I couldn't help but notice how late dinner was last night. It's terrible for my digestion to eat so late, you know. I blinked, caught off guard. Dinner was ready as soon as Emily left. I replied carefully, I thought we agreed. Yes, but only because you didn't have it prepared earlier. She cut in, her words like knives. When Emily is here, everything feels more put together. She doesn't need to be told what to do. I clenched my hands at my sides, biting back the retort that burned on my tongue. Emily stayed for less than an hour, I said, my voice steady but strained. She didn't even stay for dinner. That's not the point, Beatrice snapped, leaning forward slightly. Emily knows how to handle herself. She doesn't wait for me to tell her when or how to do things. She's considerate. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my composure. I've been here every day, Beatrice. I've been doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable. And yet, she shot back, her voice growing colder. Somehow it always feels like a struggle. You're here physically, Clara, but emotionally, you're checked out. You don't seem like you actually want to be here. Her words hit like a blow, my chest tightening. That's not fair, I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay calm. I've put my life on hold to be here for you. Sacrificing? She interrupted, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, how noble of you. If it's such a burden, Clara, maybe you should have just let Emily handle it. She's busy, yes, but at least she doesn't make me feel like an inconvenience. I opened my mouth, then closed it, unsure of how to respond. The hurt and anger bubbled inside me, but I knew saying more would only make it worse. Straightening, I said quietly, I'm doing my best, Beatrice. I'm sorry if that's not enough. She waved a hand dismissively, turning back to the television. Your best isn't what I need, Clara. Emily understands me in ways you never will. The room felt suffocating, her words hanging in the air like smoke. Without another word, I turned and left, retreating to the guest room to collect myself. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall, not yet, not in front of her. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I stared at the neatly folded clothes in my suitcase, Beatrice's words replaying in my mind, each one digging deeper into the ache that had been building for weeks. No matter how much I gave, how much I tried, it was never enough, and it never would be. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my messages until I landed on the last one from Ben. You've done enough. Clara, please come home. The words felt heavier now, but they also carried a clarity I hadn't wanted to admit before. Ben was right, I had done enough. I'd given up my time, my energy, and my peace of mind, hoping to bridge a gap that could never be closed. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for someone who refused to see me or value what I was giving. I let out a shaky breath, wiping at the tears that threatened to spill. This wasn't about giving up, it was about knowing when I'd reached my limit. For my own sanity, I had to stop waiting for Beatrice's approval. I had to go home. That afternoon, I decided to speak to her one last time. The air between us was thick, heavy with everything that had been left unsaid. My heart pounded as I stepped forward, determined to make my voice heard. Beatrice, I began, my voice steady but soft. I need to talk to you. She glanced up briefly, her expression unreadable. If this is about dinner tonight, I'd rather you focus on getting it right than wasting time chatting. My jaw tightened, but I pushed forward. No, it's not about dinner, it's about how I've been treated since I got here. Her hand froze mid-stir, and she finally looked at me, one eyebrow arching. Oh? And how exactly have you been treated, Clara? I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. I've been here every day, doing everything I can to take care of you. I've rearranged my life, missed important moments, and given you all of my energy. And yet, no matter what I do, it's never enough. You've made it clear, time and time again, that you don't value me. And honestly, I'm tired of being treated like I'm worthless. She set her spoon down with a deliberate clink, folding her hands in front of her. Well, she said coolly, if you're tired, Clara, no one's forcing you to stay. Frankly, Emily would do a much better job anyway. She always has. Her words stung sharper than I expected, but I refused to let her see how much they hurt. Emily isn't here, Beatrice, I said, my voice firmer now. She's never here for more than an hour or two. I've been the one taking care of you, but if you think she can do better, then fine, I'm done. Beatrice didn't flinch, her expression hard as stone. Good, she said with disdain. I won't miss the complaining. At least Emily knows how to show respect. I nodded slowly, the finality of her words settling over me like a cold weight. I hope she can give you what you need, I said quietly, because I won't be back. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked away, my chest tight but my head held high. Back in the guest room, I packed my things with quiet determination. Each folded piece of clothing felt like another weight lifted from my shoulders. Beatrice's cutting words still echoed in my ears, but I shoved them aside. It was over. I was done twisting myself into knots for someone who refused to see my worth. Once my bags were packed, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. My thumb hovered over Emily's name before I finally pressed call. The line rang several times before she answered. What is it, Clara? Emily's tone was clipped and impatient. I'm kind of busy right now. I took a steadying breath, refusing to let her attitude deter me. I'm leaving, I said, keeping my voice calm. I've packed my things, and I'm heading home. Beatrice needs someone here, so congratulations, you're up. What? She snapped, her voice instantly rising. Wait, what are you talking about? You can't just leave. I can, I replied firmly, and I am. I've done my part. Emily, it's your turn now. She let out a high-pitched laugh, more disbelief than amusement. Oh, sure, just drop everything on me. Do you have any idea how busy I am? I can't just. I've been here for weeks. I cut in, my tone steady. You've had plenty of time to prepare for this. Mom's your responsibility too, and she seems to think you're better at this anyway. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You've got to be kidding me, Emily shrieked, her voice climbing with panic. I don't have time to babysit her. That's your thing, Clara. You're the caretaker, not me. Not anymore, I said, my voice cold. Good luck, Emily. Before she could respond, I hung up, exhaling a shaky breath. I stood, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. It was time to leave. 4 days passed, and I did my best not to think about what might be happening at Beatrice's house. But late one evening, my phone buzzed. Her name flashed on the screen. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity, and maybe a lingering sense of guilt, got the better of me. I picked up the call. Hello? I said cautiously. Clara. Beatrice's voice came through, shaky and strained. She sounded different, tired, maybe even desperate. I need to talk to you. I hesitated. Is everything okay? No, she admitted, the word heavy with frustration and something else I couldn't quite place. Emily hasn't been here since you left. She barely answers my calls, and when she does, she has some excuse about work or being too busy. She promised me she'd be here. I bit my lip, resisting the urge to say I told you so. Instead, I stayed quiet, letting her vent. I've had to do everything on my own, Beatrice continued, her voice trembling. I can't even manage the stairs some days. I don't know what to do. Clara, I feel completely abandoned. Her words hit harder than I expected, stirring a complicated mix of sympathy, vindication, and a lingering ache of resentment. After everything she had put me through, she was finally experiencing what it meant to feel truly alone. I'm sorry to hear that, Beatrice, I said finally, keeping my tone neutral, but I warned you this might happen. Emily's good at saying the right things, but she's never been the one to follow through. There was a long pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost broken. I didn't think she'd just leave me like this. I thought she cared. I stayed silent, not wanting to twist the knife. Beatrice was finally feeling the consequences of her favoritism. A part of me felt justified, but another part couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Taking a deep breath, I clutched the phone tightly. I'm sorry you're feeling this way, I said, my voice quiet but steady. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I can't come back. Not right now. What do you mean, not right now? She snapped, her tone immediately sharp. I mean I can't drop everything again to move back in, I said firmly, though my heart ached as I spoke. Beatrice, you treated me like I was nothing when I was there. I gave everything I had, and you made me feel like I didn't matter. I can't put myself through that again. Her response was instant and furious. Oh, so now you're holding a grudge, are you? She yelled, her voice rising. You think you're so perfect, Clara. You think I didn't notice the mistakes you made while you were here? Don't act like you're some martyr. You've never been good enough for this family, and now you're proving it. Her words hit like a slap, but I kept my voice calm. I'm not saying I'm perfect, Beatrice. I know I made mistakes, but I tried. I gave everything I had, and you never saw that. And now, after everything, you expect me to come back as if none of that happened? She let out a bitter laugh, her tone dripping with anger. Selfish, that's what you are. At least Emily would never abandon me like this. Emily already has, I said quietly, the words hanging in the air. There was a stunned silence on the other end before she exploded again. Don't you dare talk about Emily like that. She has her reasons, unlike you, who's just looking for an excuse to quit. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I'm sorry you feel that way, Beatrice, but I can't come back. Not like this. Before she could respond, I ended the call, my hands trembling. Her words sat heavy on my chest, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not now, and maybe not ever. 5 days later, I was beginning to find a fragile sense of peace. Long walks and conversations with Ben helped, but the memories of Beatrice's anger still lingered. Then, late one evening, my phone buzzed again. Her name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment, debating whether to answer. Finally, with a deep breath, I picked up. Hello? Clara. Beatrice's voice broke on the other end, trembling and filled with raw emotion. Clara, I'm so sorry. Her sobs were unrestrained, her words tumbling out in broken fragments. I don't know what to say. I've been sitting here, thinking about everything, and I can't believe how awful I was to you. You didn't deserve any of it. I don't even know why I acted like that. You gave so much, and I threw it back in your face. I sat down, stunned. Beatrice, I started, but she cut me off. No, let me finish, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I've been so unfair to you, Clara, so blind. You didn't have to come here, but you did. You took care of me when no one else would, and I treated you so terribly. Her sobs deepened, and my chest tightened. I regret it so much, she choked out. Emily hasn't been here in days, and now I see it. I see what you were saying all along. I need you to know how sorry I am. I didn't deserve your kindness, but you gave it anyway. Tears pricked at my eyes, her sincerity cutting through the pain I'd been carrying. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Thank you, Beatrice, I said softly. That means more than you know. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered, but I had to tell you. I'm so sorry. I sat in silence for a moment, letting her words sink in. I'll need time, I said finally, my voice gentle but firm, but I appreciate your apology. It's a start. It is, she said, her sobs quieting. I'll try to do better, Clara, I promise. When the call ended, I set the phone down, my heart heavy yet lighter all at once. For the first time, it felt like there was a path forward, however slow it might be.
My name is Amy Snyder, and I'm 27 years old. I live with my parents. We've always been a close-knit family of 3. Ever since I was little, I've admired my dad. He runs his own business and is always busy, but whenever he has spare time, he always makes sure to spend it with me. On his days off, he dedicates his time to me. He's a wonderful father. My mom, however, is a different story. As far back as I can remember, I've never seen my mom work a day in her life. She takes care of the house but has never supported my dad's business or held a job outside. We were well off, and my mom spent most of her time going out and enjoying herself. Deep down, I knew I never wanted to be like her. She wasn't fond of kids and hardly ever paid me any attention. There were times I felt terribly lonely, but my dad always filled that void. I think he knew how indifferent my mom was towards me and made it his mission to ensure I never felt left out or alone. I'm home, Mom. Oh, is it that late already? Mom's going out, so eat some snacks and look after the house, okay? Didn't we promise to go shopping together today and make curry? Sorry. Something came up suddenly. We'll do that next time, okay? Okay. As a child, my mother often broke promises like these. At first, it brought me to tears, but I quickly learned not to take my mother's promises seriously. My father, on the other hand, never made vague promises like maybe, if I can, or I'll see. Over time, I came to rely on my father and saw him as a reliable and trustworthy person. I admired him so much that I begged to join his company after graduating from university. As an only child, I started thinking about inheriting the company and continuing my father's legacy. After I turned 20, my father took me out for drinks and taught me a lot. My mother had only been minimally involved in raising me, and as I grew older, she intervened in my life only once during my sophomore year of college. Dad, I want to work at your company after I graduate. I've already started studying for it. I even want to succeed you someday. Amy, are you sure? Wait a minute, a girl doesn't need to do that. Why not? I want to work hard like Dad. A woman should find a good man and let her husband earn a good living. That was typical of my mother. I knew she wouldn't understand, so I didn't continue the conversation. I didn't want to live my life depending on someone else like my mother. I always strove to become a strong woman who could stand on her own. For the rest of my college years, I studied hard and joined my father's company as soon as I graduated. I couldn't persuade my mother, but she eventually gave up. If you want to live your life this way, that's fine with me, but you'll be the one who suffers for not listening to your mother. If you're okay with that, do as you please, she said. So I did. Joining my father's company deepened the distance between my mother and me, but it brought my father and me closer. My father put in a lot of effort to train me, but there was a reason for that. He was sick. He spent about 6 months introducing me to people and teaching me the job before collapsing at work. He was immediately taken to the hospital, and for the next 5 years, he battled his illness. Amy, how's the company doing? Is it running smoothly without your dad? It's really hard right now, but everyone is supporting me. I'm sure it will be fine because Dad trusted me with everything I need. Well, as long as that's the case, if you, a woman, take over as the second generation and cause the company to go bankrupt, it would be a real shame. So be prepared for that. Mom, you really don't have any interest or love for the company. You're only concerned about others' judgment. It's sad to hear you say that. When my father first collapsed, I often argued with my mom. My father would come to the company on his good days, going in and out of the hospital, gradually weakening over 5 years. In the last year, he was almost bedridden. During his final visit to the company, he said to me, "This company and its employees are precious treasures to me, but I have to let go of my treasure. Over the past few years, I've watched you work. Amy, I trust you with it. Can I ask you to protect this place and everyone here for me? I don't know if I can be like you, Dad, but I'll keep trying to get closer to you, who I've always admired, so you can rest easy." From that day on, the title of representative was passed on to me. I had been so busy that I barely had time to go home. Since my father was mostly in the hospital, I made time to see him frequently. My mother did the bare minimum, like bringing him changes of clothes, but even that seemed bothersome to her. What does my mother think of my father? Does she not have any feelings or gratitude for him, or any feelings of pity for a sick person? I couldn't help but feel sorry for my father. I recalled how hard he had worked for me when I was young, a child unable to feel my mother's love, no matter how exhausted I was. I made it a point to visit him as much as possible. This routine lasted for about a year until he passed away peacefully in his sleep. I was so swamped with various tasks that I barely had time to grieve. My mother, who knew nothing, insisted that I handle everything, from the funeral arrangements to the hospital paperwork. Realistically, I didn't expect my mother, who had never done anything but stay home and play, to handle all of these procedures, so I silently took care of everything. Amy, the funeral's over. You've settled down now, haven't you? My mother broached the subject the day after the funeral. Please leave this house. I've just inherited 200 million yen, so I have no use for you anymore. Thank you. I was waiting for you to say that. I had concluded that talking to her any further was pointless. Did she think it was okay to just have money and live a life of leisure? I had nothing but questions, but I decided to leave. The next day, I called the service and sold all my belongings. My mother was utterly surprised at how quickly I had organized my departure. However, I had kept a secret from her. I didn't know why she claimed to have inherited 200 million yen, but my father had entrusted all the money matters to me, and I was the rightful inheritor. There wasn't a single penny left for my mother. My father had firmly requested this when he was still healthy. Your mother doesn't understand anything about money management or spending. I want you to give her household expenses on a monthly basis. If she gets a large sum, she'll likely go bankrupt immediately, but I don't think she'll listen to me. If she complains, tell her you won't give her a single penny. No way. Just kidding, but if you have trouble dealing with her, give her this. My father handed me an SD card. He said it contained a video letter from him to my mother. I never imagined that I would show her this, but judging from her recent attitude, I thought the day would come soon. My mother was alone in the spacious house after I left. I was expecting her to contact me soon, but she did so faster than I anticipated. Come home immediately. Huh? What are you talking about? I'm working. I just need to talk to you. Please come quickly. She's so self-centered. With that thought, I headed to my childhood home with the SD card. As soon as my mother saw me, she started accusing me. You ran off with all of your father's inheritance, didn't you? I knew something was off since you left right away. Hand over your father's inheritance to me now. How greedy can you be? You can't even act right as a mother. Who do you think you're talking to? I quietly handed her the SD card. What's this? Oh, I guess you don't even know how to watch this. Mocking her, I took out my laptop, inserted the SD card, and played the video. On the screen was my father, as healthy as he used to be. I wonder how my mother will react to this video letter. I left the room in silence. I had never seen my mother defy my father before, but how about now, after his death? Would my father's thoughts reach my mother? When I returned to the room, my mother, who had finished watching everything, was crying. I couldn't believe it. My mother was crying while watching a video of my deceased father. I was curious about the video my father left for my mother, but I didn't dare to watch it myself, so I had no idea why my mother was crying. Mom, are you okay? Yes. For now. I get it. I will follow your father's instructions and leave everything to you from now on. Please go home for today. Call me again when you've cooled down. I thought she probably didn't want me to see her in a vulnerable state, so I went home right away that day. How did my father silence my mother? I was full of questions. Almost a month went by without hearing from my mother. I started to worry and decided to visit my parents' house during my lunch break. But my mother wasn't home. That night, I went to see my mother again. The lights were on at the house, which relieved me. I'm sorry for dropping in suddenly. I came by this afternoon, but you weren't home, so I got worried. I'm sorry. I was out for my part-time job during the day. What? A part-time job? My mother, as far as I knew, was a person who would absolutely not work. Why did it come to this? Didn't you watch that video? That was a video letter addressed to you, so I didn't watch it. You can take it home. You should watch it too. Amy, my mother handed over the SD card to me, saying, well then, I felt a bit frightened to learn what my father conveyed. Observing my mother's unusual demeanor, I went back to the office and sat down at the desk my father used. Then I played the video. Honey, if you're watching this, it means you've not been able to communicate with Amy. First of all, thank you so much for helping me raise Amy until now. Without you, I don't think I could have managed the company while bringing up Amy. I felt something was off about the way my father was speaking. The next moment, my father said something shocking. You've taken care of Amy even though she is not your child. And I have nothing but gratitude for you, who stood by my side for so many years. But as a result, you've given up on your dreams and have reached your age without earning your own living, for which I take responsibility because I have allowed you to live a life of luxury. I'm sure you'll be in trouble when I'm gone. I'm not my mother's child. I was so surprised that I blurted it out, but then it made sense. Even though I didn't feel much love, she had been taking care of me by cooking for me every day and doing the bare minimum for a child who wasn't her own. Who is that person? I didn't register our marriage because you told me you felt bad for your sister, so I ended up supporting your living and didn't do anything else. I'm sorry, but once I'm gone, I worry about the rest of your life. There's no one to support you, and I've taken your life away. I couldn't believe what my father, who spoke so fluently, was saying. It was all news to me. My father kept talking about what had happened in the past and what he hopes for our future. I spent the whole night processing all this and went back to my mother the next day. Mom, I watched the video from Dad yesterday. You know it all now. I raised you because I was asked to. That's all. What happened to my biological mother? You were the child of my sister and your father. My sister died right after giving birth to you, and I told your distressed father that I would help raise you. I would become your mother. After hearing the story from my mother, I understood everything, even the parts one had imagined. My mother used to work in a diner, and my father used to go there to eat sometimes. My mother was lively and hardworking at that time, and her dream was to have her own diner. However, when she decided to become my mother, she gave up on that dream. After being reminded about her dream by my father, my mother decided to work for it again and is now training as a part-timer to make that dream come true. I should have done this earlier. Working is fun and suits me. I had no idea, so it's my fault you didn't work. I'm really sorry for not knowing anything. It's not your fault, Amy. I made the decision myself, but I'm not good with children, so I couldn't handle you well, and I'm the one who caused you trouble. I never thought the day would come when I could have a conversation with my mother like this. At this stage in my life, I finally feel like I've come to understand my mother a bit. We've had many conversations since then, and we decided to use the money left by my father to fund the opening of her shop. Once she started working, she became somewhat humble. She was hesitant when the topic of funds for the shop came up, which would have been unimaginable not too long ago. While maintaining my regular job, I also help with the opening of her diner, which led to me seeing my mother frequently. I attribute this newly forged relationship to my father. Regarding living expenses, she insisted on managing with her own income, not wanting to accept help from my father's inheritance. Promise me that you'll tell me if you're struggling. After all, Dad trusted me to take care of you. I'll be fine living on my own. It doesn't cost that much, but in terms of my diner's expenses, I'll be relying on you. Of course, I'm looking forward to it too, so do your best. After many years, we finally became a real family, and now we are living harmoniously. She is not my birth mother, and it might have just been the right time for me to learn this. Your diner is finally gonna open tomorrow. Your dream is coming true. Seeing you work so hard at that company reminded me of my own dreams when I was younger. I believe that's why I've made it this far. It's all thanks to you and your father. Thank you so much. Mom, promise me to always be my mom. Amy, from now on, let's get along even better than before. After all, we only have each other. That's true. Upon my father's death, the truth was revealed. I accepted the reality and decided to live on with just my mother and me. As I observed my mother's lifestyle, I thought about moving back to my hometown and living together with her again. I don't cook, so my mother is concerned about my poor diet and is supportive of me coming back. My father would probably be surprised that we're getting along so well. His house, company, and inheritance that he left behind, I'll protect them at all costs while continuing to get along with my mother. In order to become a real family, we visited the graves of my father and my biological mother, my mother's older sister, to give our daily life updates. After going through the process of adoption, I finally became registered as the daughter of my mother. We used your mother-in-law's savings for this trip. It'll eventually become Tyler's inheritance anyway, so it's fine, right? My brother and his wife rushed over immediately after our mother passed away, not to offer condolences but to get her bank book and withdraw her savings before I could submit her death certificate to the government office. You used Mom's money, huh? Trying to suppress my anger, I asked Carol, who casually responded, yeah, we spent about $10,000 on the trip, LOL. The audacity of my brother and his wife, who conspired to use my mother's money without permission, made me furious for a moment. But then I remembered something. Right. These people don't know. I couldn't help but laugh. My condolences. Carol looked puzzled by my sudden laughter. What's wrong with you? Did the shock of us using the money make you go crazy? Of course. I wasn't going crazy. I just couldn't help but laugh when I imagined the surprise on the faces of my brother and his wife when they found out the truth and their miserable fate. Their carefree days were probably numbered. I am Samantha, a very ordinary office worker raised by kind parents. My parents were always good-natured, constantly thinking about what they could do for others. Their kindness sometimes led them to being deceived or burdened with unfair responsibilities, but I admired them nonetheless. However, my brother Tyler had a completely different personality. He was always calculating what was beneficial for him and acted accordingly. To him, our parents, who would go out of their way to help others, were incomprehensible. As Tyler grew up, his rebellion against our parents intensified. In high school, he began to demand more money from them, saying, if you can afford to do something for others, you can give me more allowance. Despite accepting Tyler's personality, our parents never changed their beliefs. Their unwavering character only frustrated him more. Tyler's negative feelings towards our parents only grew stronger in college. Taking advantage of the fact that our parents paid for his tuition, Tyler spent his college days partying and eventually failing a year, which caused them trouble. Parents should naturally devote themselves to their children, right? Or can you only be kind to others but not your own family? Tyler continued his selfish behavior with such justification. I once heard him brag to his friends, my parents are so gullible, LOL. After graduating college, Tyler moved out and started living on his own. Although he left home without notice, he complained, I can't live a decent life on my first paycheck, and kept coming back to our parents' house to get living expenses before returning to his own place. Our parents worried about him and kept giving him money as requested. When I got a job, I decided to support our parents financially in place of Tyler. Samantha, it's your hard-earned money, so you can use it however you like. Although my parents said this, I wanted to help them, so I continued to give them money as if it were their grocery expenses. This lifestyle continued for several years, and Tyler, who only showed up to ask for money, unusually invited me and our parents to a restaurant to talk. At the meeting place, a beautiful woman was sitting next to Tyler. Dad, Mom, Samantha, let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Carol. The woman introduced as Carol bowed her head slightly. I decided to marry Carol. We'll be busy preparing for our new life and the wedding, but I hope you'll support us. I thought support meant something like, please take care of Carol, but it seems my older brother had a completely different idea in his head. He asked our parents to pay for his wedding and new home. Knowing our parents' inability to say no when it comes to helping others, he skillfully persuaded them to cover all the expenses. Even after the wedding and the purchase of the new home, he continued to get money from them. Carol, his wife, became accustomed to this and started living more extravagantly. However, this lifestyle didn't last long. Our father's health deteriorated, and he was hospitalized. Even with insurance, hospital stays are expensive. To ensure our retired parents wouldn't struggle financially, I suggested to my brother that we both share the burden of the hospital bills. I've been living at home and getting help from Mom and Dad, and you've received a lot of financial support from them too, right? This is the time to help them out. But my brother didn't agree. What? Why should I? It's Dad's fault for not taking care of his health. He neglected himself while helping others. That's his responsibility. After that, my brother stopped visiting our parents' house altogether. Neither he nor Carol visited our father even once while he was in the hospital. My mother and I desperately took care of him, but he passed away. Even when we informed them of our father's death, they didn't help with the funeral arrangements. They showed up briefly at the funeral but didn't greet our relatives properly and left. Our relatives looked at them with disdain, but they probably didn't care. My mother, who had bravely acted as the chief mourner during the funeral, began to lose her energy after the funeral, clearly affected by the loss of my father. Tyler, Mom has been feeling down lately. She wants to see you. Can you visit her at home sometimes? When I asked my brother, he thought for a moment and then said, "By the way, what happened to Dad's inheritance?"
It all went to Mom. They decided on that when Dad was still alive. I see, so Mom has the money now, right? Feeling a bad premonition, I warned my brother immediately. Like I said before, Mom is mentally weak right now. Don't try to take her money, okay? I want you to come and cheer her up. What's the point of going if I can't get any money? It's not worth it. When I insisted that we wouldn't give him any money, he never visited our parents' house. And then, half a year after our father's death, our mother passed away too. Even knowing our mother's weakened state, my brother never showed any concern. When he learned of her death, he rushed back to our parents' house. I thought he would fulfill his duty as the eldest son during the funeral, but as it started, he and his wife disappeared. I called his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. In the end, I took on the role of the chief mourner instead of him and managed to finish the funeral. It was a few days later when I finally got in touch with my brother. "Ah, Samantha, this is Carol." When I called my brother's phone, Carol answered. "Tyler is busy with boarding procedures and can't answer the phone." "Boarding procedures? Carol, where are you?" "We're at JFK Airport. We're leaving the United States in a few hours. LOL. Are you leaving the United States and going abroad?" "Yes, we're going on an international trip." I was surprised at my brother and his wife's decision to go on a trip abroad right after our mother's death, but I was even more shocked by what Carol said next. "We're really grateful to our mother-in-law. You know, thanks to her, we're able to enjoy this luxurious trip abroad." Ha ha. "What do you mean by that?" "Well, we used our mother-in-law's savings for this trip. It was going to be Tyler's inheritance anyway, so why not?" "From Mom's savings? How did you get that money?" "When we visited her house, we borrowed her bank book and seal. We knew we wouldn't be able to withdraw money once the death certificate was submitted, so we hurried." The real reason they rushed to our mom's house after her death was to get the bank book and withdraw the money before I submitted the death certificate. "So you used Mom's money?" Trying to suppress my anger, I asked Carol, and she casually replied, "Yes, we already spent $10,000 on the trip expenses. It's a good thing Tyler's plan worked out." For a moment, I was furious at the audacity of my brother and his wife for using our mom's money without permission, but then I remembered something. That's right, they don't know. I couldn't help but laugh. "Ha, serves you right." Confused by my sudden laughter, Carol asked, "What's wrong with you? Did the shock of us using the money make you lose your mind?" "Tyler is the eldest son, so it's natural for him to inherit more, right?" Laughing, I answered, "Sure, that's fine. I'll give up my inheritance so Tyler can inherit everything. That was your plan all along, right?" Upon hearing this, Carol happily said, "Oh my, you're quite understanding. Ha, by the way, please make sure to arrange for all of Mom's mail to be sent to your house from now on." "Don't worry, it's a simple task. I'll let Tyler know." Carol hung up the phone cheerfully. I didn't hear from my brother again until they returned from their trip. "Samantha, Carol told me you're giving up your inheritance." "Yes, but more importantly, did you handle the mail forwarding for Mom's mail?" "Yeah, I took care of it as soon as we got back." "Good to know. You're not going to change your mind later, are you? You won't say you should have inherited after all?" "Of course not. I still believe my decision was the right one." "Well, it's only right that I, the eldest son, inherit everything. Ha ha." My brother said this and ended the call in high spirits, but a few weeks later, He called again, sounding panicked. There's a collection notice addressed to Mom in her mail. What's this about? Oh, is it from the bank? Our parents always wanted to help people in need and would accept any request. This included money matters. If someone asked to borrow money, they would even borrow from the bank to lend to others or become a guarantor if asked. As a result, their debt grew more and more. The amount of debt was far greater than the savings, so inheriting would clearly put them in the red. Did you know about this? My brother raised his voice. You knew Mom had debt, right? Why didn't you say anything? There was no point. What? You're saying it's meaningless? You knew about the debt, so you gave up your inheritance, right? If I had known, I would have given it up too. That's impossible. Why the hell is it impossible? Tyler, you took money from Mom's bank account to go on vacation, didn't you? So what? What does that have to do with giving up the inheritance? It's a big deal. What you did is considered a simple acceptance of the inheritance. Simple what? What does that mean? Explain it so I can understand. I explained to my brother that by withdrawing money from our deceased family member's account for his own use before the inheritance process,
It was considered a simple acceptance of the inheritance. I've never heard of such a thing. Of course not. Few people would even think of using a deceased family member's savings for their own selfish desires, so it rarely comes up. You're just making up excuses to keep the inheritance for yourself. I have a lawyer friend who will check if you're lying. My brother hung up, apparently seeking legal advice. When he called back, his tone had changed. Samantha, you were right. I can't give up the inheritance now. It seemed the lawyer had confirmed what I had told him. My brother finally realized he had inherited not just assets, but also significant debt. He had always been the one asking our parents for money, oblivious to the fact they were accumulating debt in the background. It wasn't an exaggeration to say his own actions contributed to the financial mess. Still, he was desperate to avoid paying it back. He and Carol likely didn't have much savings left. Given their extravagant spending, it was clear they were unable to handle the debt on their own. My brother tried to sweet-talk me. Hey, Samantha, with our parents gone, it's just us now. Shouldn't we work together? Work together? What do you mean? I think we should pool our resources to pay off the debt. It's time to show some filial piety. Forget about the inheritance and help me cover half of it. I sighed heavily at his belated and self-serving proposal. What are you talking about? When Dad was in the hospital, I suggested we both support our parents, but you refused. I was busy. No matter how busy you were, you never visited Dad in the hospital or supported Mom afterward. I don't want to hear about filial piety from you ever again. With nothing more to say, I ended the call. Have you ever done anything for anyone, Tyler? You took advantage of our kind parents, but nobody will help someone who can't even support others, even if they're family. But if you don't help me, Carol and I won't be able to repay the debt. Are you really going to abandon your brother? When Dad was in the hospital, you said it was his fault for not taking care of his health. Now, using Mom's savings is your own fault. I regret that, okay? I've changed. Have you? I still think you're just trying to escape your own responsibility, even if you have changed. The person you owe an apology to is no longer here. It's too late. I cut him off and hung up. I had no intention of assisting him after all the harm he had caused our parents over the years. Burdened with debt and unable to live as they once did, Tyler and Carol's relationship quickly deteriorated. However, separating would have been costly, so they remained together, bickering constantly. Initially, they tried to save money and pay off the debt gradually from their salaries, but it didn't last long. Neither Tyler nor Carol could let go of their previous lavish lifestyle, and they continued to spend money secretly, worsening their financial situation. As a result, they blamed each other for their mounting debt, further straining their marriage. Their relationship continued to crumble in this endless cycle. Meanwhile, I found time to properly mourn our parents. During the funeral, I remembered the countless attendees who tearfully expressed their gratitude for the help our parents had given them in times of need. Seeing the impact they had on so many lives made me even prouder of them. It was ironic that my brother, who had never shown gratitude and had always caused trouble, ended up inheriting the debt from our parents' acts of kindness. Despite the financial difficulties, I continued to honor our parents' memory at the family altar each day, reflecting on their unwavering commitment to helping others.